la primera junta de la mesa directiva de Cabrillo para el año 2021. Es con gran honor y humildad aceptar la posición de presidenta de la mesa directiva para este próximo año. Yo soy la primera mexicana que sirvo como presidenta en este distrito y prometo tratar de servirles en la mejor manera posible, siempre con el interés de los niños y la comunidad por delante, y representar en alto la perspectiva de mi comunidad. Muchas gracias a todos los que me han apoyado y brindado su ayuda. Muchas gracias al superintendente, a Rosie, y a todos los que me han preparado y ofrecido un lugar aquí en el distrito para poder tener una computadora y un espacio. Um, y más que nada, gracias y que me tengan paciencia y gracias por su apoyo. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here to the first, like Dr. McPetrick said, first meeting of 2021. It's with great honor and humility that I accept the vacant seat of presidency for the board for this coming year of 2021. I am the first Mexican female serving as president of this district, and I promise to serve with the best interest of the students and the community. Um, uh, um, with that interest in, I'm trying to translate by memory. So I am not perfect. I'm not like you, Josefina. Um, I I want everybody to know that I do take this very serious, and I will do my best, and I will do the best I can, and I will also make sure that I bring the perspective of my community as well. And I want to thank everybody. I want to thank everybody who has been so supportive and has been helpful. And I want to say thank you to our superintendent, Dr. McPetrich, and Rosie, and everybody who has been so gracious to prepare this little space here for me at the district office with a computer so that I can be on camera and be live. And I just want to welcome everybody and say thank you, and please be patient with me, and thank you for being here.
What a beautiful welcome to our new president and to our new calendar year. Muy bien dicho bien. Es una bienvenida muy bonita y muchísimas gracias, Presidenta Cortez. Thank you very much, President Cortez. Beautiful welcome. I'll go ahead and say that we met in closed session before this, and there was no action taken. And Madam President, if you would introduce our student board member for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Yes, Caroline Hodge, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and
and
to
to the republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Seems so much harder to do on Zoom than in person, but thank you, Caroline. Thank you for leading us in that.
All right.
And Madam President, the approval of agenda.
Yes, consent items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Rosie, I'm gonna ask for you if you could help us, and since you're the one that are taking notes, if you could roll call the board members and record the votes for us.
Do we have a second?
Yeah, second.
And Rosie will unmute and do a roll call.
This is for approval of agenda, correct?
This is for approval of the agenda. Just for the public, if there were any items on the consent agenda that the board members wanted to move to the general session, they would do so at this time, and we would bring those to the end of the agenda, but I don't hear any interest by the board in doing so. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Lizette,
Aye.
I'm reading Rosie's lips. Go ahead, Rosie.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Lizette,
Aye.
Maribeth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline,
Aye.
passes 5+1. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acosta.
Next on our agenda is general business, and we will, do I have?
Oh, first communications.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay. First communications, and we will start off with, hold on. I think it's our representative for, go ahead, Sean, tell me who? Oh,
It's CUTA first in the order.
First,
CUTA.
we have public comments, and we have one.
Oh, yes, we do. I have it here somewhere. Okay, hold on.
As the public knows, we receive public comment before the meeting in these Zoom meetings, and they are either written or they're delivered live. And President Cortez will read the one comment we received tonight.
This comment, can you hear me? Yeah. This comment is from Meta Townsley, and she's a parent. And I will read her comment. Thank you for your participation on the CUSD board. I appreciate your decision to reopen our schools. It's a significant responsibility that all of you take with great commitment on behalf of all of the CUSD students and teachers. And it will be difficult to satisfy all of your constituents with whatever final outcome. It's my understanding that you hope to first open elementary schools, if possible, next week through February. I completely understand the importance of separating the students into two cohorts, AM and PM, with cleaning in between. My hope is that you would reconsider the hybrid model established for the high school student and for the high school, and put in place a similar AM PM schedule, or allow students at home to Zoom in during in-person classes that they cannot attend. As much as I want my child to return in-person learning for the social aspect, I am greatly concerned with the trade-off of losing structured, synchronized learning days. It was a challenge for our kids to get up to speed with remote learning. I cannot imagine the challenge our students will experience switching to 3 asynchronized days. I think we'd all agree on the importance for our kids to feel successful at school during this extraordinary time. I doubt if anyone would like to see our students slip or move backwards because students receive fewer days of connection with their teachers. Again, thank you for your commitment and leadership of our district. I appreciate your time and consideration of my comments. That was the only public comment. So now we will move to employee organization, and that's CUTA representative.
Mr. Rioran is connecting.
President Cortez, board members, Superintendent McFetridge, and district management. My name is Sean Reardon, and I am co-president of the Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association. January, back to school, remotely, of course, but also back to the negotiating tables where we're discussing the memorandum of understanding to address hybrid learning. We met in early January, and we'll meet again next week to dig deeper into the scientific, logistical, and contractual issues surrounding the return to in-person hybrid education. This is the goal hope, and aspiration of all of the teachers at Cabrillo Unified School District. And a special word of acknowledgement to Joseph Santoni, who provided scientific and research expertise to inform a safe return to in-person instruction. Joseph, thank you very much. Our first session was long but productive and embraced a new sense of cooperation at the bargaining table. Cooperation based on mutual respect for scientific-based decision-making. With this respect, we were able to work across the table, and it was a sense of mutual understanding that decisions would be based on scientific facts and applied equally to all Cabrillo Unified School District employees. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that the existing rules regarding foreign travel have been equally applied to all employees at Cabrillo Unified School District. I understand that at an elementary site, several employees traveled abroad to attend to healthcare for loved ones and to attend to legal matters. All the teachers who traveled abroad returned before the start date of January 4th and were directed by the school district to quarantine for 10 days before they returned to their school site. I understand, however, that the site administrator who returned from Europe this weekend has been working on site since Monday morning. This has been confirmed by multiple individuals at the site. My question, which will not touch on issues of personnel, but will be grounded in respect for science and respect for all employees at the Cabrillo Unified School District, classified, CUTA, and administrators. How can an individual in a leadership position be exempt from scientifically based decisions? If teachers and classified staff have been requested, encouraged to quarantine for 10 days before return to site, should not that same rule apply to administrators? I look forward to a response to this question. Thank you.
You're muted, Lizette.
Just kidding. Hi, thank you, Sean Reardon. And now we have a representative from CSEA report.
Good evening, President Cortes, board members, Superintendent McPatrick, administrators, staff, and community. My name is Stig Lynne, and I am the president for the support staff in Cabrillo Unified School District. I want to start to wish everyone a happy new year and hope everyone had a pleasant break. So I'm going to start with the tentative agreement with the district about salary increases for the year 1920 and for 2021. Was swift and really fought through negotiations. There we also get to an understanding on what to work for when we start in the new opening of the next contract. And I think that's gonna also be easier, that we all are prepared for the next opening of the negotiations. We're also working with the district with the MOU, MOU for opening of the school, for protection of our employees and staff. Good news to CSA member voted in December. We usually, CSAA, we support our local COSI Hope. We usually give $500 from our members to help out families. This year, we took the decision that we have hard times in our community for many families. So we gave $1,000 to COSI Hope, and we gave $1,000 to COSI Hope, and we gave ALAS $500 to help out for the families in need. And I want to just end my speech with with public what do you call it, statement from CSEA, our president for California, about the things that have happened lately. Freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest are cornerstone elements of our democracy. These freedoms, however, should never be exercised through violent means. CSA mission is to improve the life of our members, students, and community. As a union, we understand the power of political passion, mobilizing and protesting to make our collective voice heard. We also know that democracy of our country allows us the freedom to disagree safely and even debate issues. Violence is never a solution, and it goes against everything for which our union stands. CSA condemns the act of these who engage in illegal and destructive behavior and extends our sympathies to the families of the 5 individuals who unfortunately lost their lives. I know it's hard times, like I said before, with COVID, with all this political crazy stuff going on. We need to think about our words, what we say, and that we take care of each other, especially on our workplace, and we work with children. Thank you.
Thank you, Stig. Next, we will go and do our board member reports. Do I have anybody would like to go first? Don't all speak at once.
I can go. I just had a few things tonight. One was just to tell people that I've been on, Sophia and I have been on some calls for the county and for the San Mateo County School Boards Associations this week. And just to briefly overview it, basically everyone's talking about vaccinations and testing. So that's what's going on. That's my report for those. I think the county officials are really going crazy right now trying to get vaccinations to people. So they are trying, is the bottom line from that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight was the kids, the small subset of kids we have that are now shining under this remote model. And I think in school, it usually works that most kids are good and doing okay, but there's this small subset of kids that are really struggling in normal school. But I feel like that's kind of flip-flopped right now. So now we have a lot of kids struggling with this remote learning, but we have this small subset of kids that are really shining and really doing well. And it kind of made me think and really have some empathy for those people. Because if you think about those kids, you know, who are usually okay and they're struggling and how much their parents are struggling and they're struggling and what a burden it is on everyone to think that those kids that are doing well now, like that's how they feel the whole rest of the time, that they're always struggling like that. And it's really given me some empathy to think how that must feel to live your life like that. And so in thinking about that, I just wanted to throw it out there. I wonder is there a way we can celebrate the small group of kids who is really thriving in this environment? Number one, can we celebrate them? Because usually those kids are not the ones being celebrated. But they're suddenly in this environment where they're thriving. So number one, can we celebrate them? And number two, when we do go back to normal school, is there a way maybe we can change things that would be more inclusive or help them more, or somehow, you know, help them for it not to be such a struggle? So I've been thinking about that and just thought I might bring that up because, you know, it's not for the kids that are always struggling and suddenly are doing well, maybe there's a way we can celebrate them. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Anyone would like to go next?
I can go next. So happy New Year, everybody. It's hard to believe it's been just a couple of weeks. 2021 feels like we've somehow had more historic moments than non-historic moments over these last couple of weeks already. So one of the major topics on my mind has been burnout, and how important it is to just recognize how this acute burnout from the pandemic situation and like a billion other things, and that constant chronic trauma that many folks have been feeling, students, families, employees, community members, it was pretty rampant before. So I think this acute trauma laid on top of it is something that just we have to really recognize. And Stig and Mary Beth both kind of alluded to this. So, I'm constantly thinking about how, what can we do to continue to improve and continue to help our community and everybody in it thrive and support those students to do the same. Because when the grown-ups are struggling, it's hard for the kids it's hard for us to support the kids. And it comes back to a lot of different resources and a lot of different approaches on that. But the value of kindness and compassion to ourselves, starting with ourselves as well as others, can't be underestimated. And the second thing I've been thinking a lot about is, a lot of the acute challenges we're seeing through this pandemic is really exacerbating a lot of the chronic conditions that were already existing at a social level as well. Most notably, I think we can't deny the systemic racism and the inequitable access to healthcare, housing, and education, and how that's affecting people more acutely right now. That said, in Silicon Valley, disruption is used intentionally as a tool for transformational change. And I really do keep coming back in a lot of the conversations I've been having lately, in the meetings Mary Beth referred to and others, it comes back to, taking this opportunity in public education, not to get back to normal, but to get to something better. And then that's hard sometimes when we are in this burnout state, but sometimes it gives us hope that it's all worth it, right? Like I think of all these amazing things that have been happening, and I've been seeing it in my personal experience, of course, has been more at Cunha in the high school because of my family, but just seeing things that are slowly changing our culture and slowly changing our structures so we can have more flexibility, as Mary Beth kind of alluded to, more of a kind of a collaborative spirit, more around joy and fun and inclusivity, more around the students as a whole student. So balancing social emotional well-being with the academic focus. I want to say a couple examples that really stood out to me that I really, really appreciated. One is the adjustment of master schedules to improve the wellness supports for students and staff, so to allow more times for folks to watch the news videos together in class, because we know kids aren't going to watch them as another to do offline, but also to allow for a longer break in the middle of the morning for like a snack or stretching, just to really kind of have some extended time to regroup. So that was one that I really appreciated. There are tons, so I'm just going to go through a few. Enhancing our use of our learning management tool, School Loop, which those who use it know it all too well. But I'm seeing some changes that start to really focus on using that tool more as literally a learning management tool than just a tool for like listing assignments and reporting on grades. Where it's the little things like there's a function in there where you can mark an assignment as incomplete and provide comments, and then give the student a chance to respond to that and resubmit. And like that really helps kids with the learning. And so it's really, as opposed to just getting a 0 or getting a 50 or whatever. And so that's really cool, because that's, I think, something that's motivating for kids as well, to be really, having school centered around learning. I know one class is offering, at least one, I know of one class that's offering a dance party if everyone completes an assignment, to really create that sense of accountability for being part of the team without any shame, because it's like calling it all privately tracked, but that's something that if everyone needs a little extrinsic motivator to do their assignment, that could help. And I know last week, many of the classes, including some of the science classes, really addressed openly what happened in Washington, D.C. Knowing this was on many of our student minds, and while not relevant to the content per se for that class, I really appreciated that, those discussions were happening everywhere, because kids were bringing that to all their class. So that's the second thing. The last thing I think about is we got to get this virus under control. So as much as we can, kind of this, broader scope than just schools, but schools are a big part of our community. So as much as we can all really be all hands on deck to reduce that transmission, observing the safety protocols, being patient, but getting the vaccine when we can, donate or volunteer if you can, just help people when they're struggling, help run errands for them or whatever. Let's all make sure we're also working from good information, from good resources as well. So lots going on, lots of meetings this past week with CSBA to hear about the governor's budget proposal, with our county superintendent earlier today, which Mary Beth mentioned. County elected officials last week, where again, we heard a lot about testing and vaccinations. I'm really also happy, so thrilled with the district budget advisory committee and what a great group has come together there to have complex, difficult conversations about, not this perhaps the sexiest topic in education. Sorry, no offense to anybody, but it's really, really good conversations there, as well as a parent on the health and wellness committee at the high school, just to see. I'll talk about that more later because I'm just really overjoyed with the leadership and the folks that have come together there as well to really think about our kids holistically and what it takes for them to be well. So thank you for everybody that's involved in all those groups. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Sophia. Kim?
I can go. So Happy New Year, everyone. Good to be back with the board and looking forward to all that we have in front of us. A couple of the items, I realize we're going to have some heavy lifting to do in terms of looking at the campus, the architecture's recommendations, and I know it's 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag in terms of demands on our Measure M funds, but also looking forward to continuing to work with Mary Beth and hoping we get an request for proposal out so we can get some people to provide some recommendations on how we use our campuses, how we use our surplus land, and kind of start to think out of the box that way. Second, when it comes to students, I think from an anthropology point of view, we each have to do our part to reassure children that this is not forever. And I understand not all students are thriving. In fact, most are really frustrated, but this is temporary. Talk to anyone who has been in a war-torn country and had their entire education system disrupted where they weren't in school and had no support. In reality, there are a lot of alternative type assignments, and I hope teachers will think out of the box a little bit, and just everyone be gentle with each other, and let's celebrate the resiliency that's going to come post-COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Freya?
Okay, thank you, Lizette. Thank you all. One of the benefits of going near to last is that everything's already been said. But anyways, let me just throw in Happy New Year to everyone. And I really do hope that this new year begins us all off on a better year with not quite as many strange and crazy disasters and surprises and pandemics hopefully resolving, and that everybody is staying healthy and everyone's family is staying healthy. And I know that that's just very important that we all keep that in mind. And I just also want to call out, I'm very, very excited that we're approving the AB 1200 and that we're looking at the tentative agreement, or hopefully approving it tonight and finishing the process of adequately compensating our staff as these difficult times are coming. It's very important that we recognize and do that. I'm so glad that that has been resolved in this last year. And that's, for me, that's definitely a ray of hope in this coming year as we resolve those things. So yeah, looking forward to this new year and hope everybody's just continue to stay healthy. Hopefully we're almost through the worst months of this, and that's all. Wait, and congratulations to Lizette for being the first Mexican-American woman as a president for us. I'm just very proud of you, and I'm so excited for your leadership for this next year. So, and I really loved you starting Spanish as well. So thank you so much, Lizette. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm obviously nervous because I kind of messed up. I bypassed all of our public comments and I just went straight to the agenda. Thank you. And I agree with Freya. I mean, pretty much everything has been said. And I do want to, what I do want to echo on is what Mary Beth mentioned, and just the fact that there are kids thriving, and I appreciate people who have reached out, sent us emails, and letting us know how, you know, how successful their students have been, because it's definitely not the norm, and it's just refreshing, and it's great to hear that it's working for some students, and that's always nice to hear. I also would like to thank and acknowledge Dr. McFetrich for that great email that was sent out. Thank you for sending that email, and I just want to, you know, read out at the end of his email. He quoted Dr. King, who said, "We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. And I hope we can all find a new dimension of love and kindness in the year to come." So thank you, Dr. McFetrich, and I hand it to you for your superintendent report.
Thank you very much,
Sorry, Sean, we have to do our,
Caroline.
yes, thank you.
Just kidding. It's not on here. I just wanted to let you know I didn't mess up. I don't see it on here.
All right, so I'm going to start with Kings Mountain. So Kings Mountain's 4th and 5th graders have been studying food systems. One of the problems they identified was food distribution. So to help find a solution, one of the groups created a food drive, which is going to be from January 18th to 22nd. They will be collecting food next week at 3 homes, and at the end of the week, they will take all the food to Coastside Hope. 2nd and 3rd grader students will begin an optional passion project for 1 period a day for 6 weeks to study any topic. Learn any skill like how to play a piano, cook a gourmet meal, or complete a family tree in a series of small tasks. Along the way, using their blog on Seesaw to communicate their progress with peers, parents, and teachers. TKK1 chose the Storytime channel for project-based learning, which asks how can we make stories come alive for kids in our community. They started the Reader's Theater of the 3 pigs, the coyote, and the rabbit. Kings Mountain students are planning to create Valentines for vets during the Great Kindness Challenge and hope to open a learning pod soon. La Costa started their spring semester, and they are offering the following courses: ESL levels 1 through 5, high school equivalency prep courses to pass GED or HISET, Spanish levels 1 through 2, and CTE modern office skills. And they are registering students this month who are interested. Half Moon Bay High School, they are now publishing a weekly newsletter called the Cougar Courier. Sorry, I think that's how it's pronounced. And this is helping the students and parents have a one-stop place to look to gather most of the high school information. It is published every Tuesday and sent to every student and parent in both English and Spanish. They are they are beginning a partnership with Gentech, which reached out to our technology department and offered to have a Wi-Fi bus sit on the high school campus during the school weeks and provide high-speed internet connection to the students. The bus will sit in the parking lot from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. each school day. And the students can either work from their cars or benches that they will set up, spaced, and ready for students to use. Hatch, teachers, staff, and students came back from winter break and are working hard. Students are learning both live on Zoom with their teachers and are using many of the learning sites and applications. Some fun lessons students are working on include setting goals for the new year with their teachers, practicing foundations, learning about Martin Luther King Jr., making comics about growth mindset, and much more. Students are continuing to make progress on their learning goals using programs like Lexia, RazKids, Zern, Mystery Science, and Wonders. Students are able to share their work and learning using programs like Seesaw, Google Classroom, and Flipgrid. Hatch learning pods are very successful. Students are showing up in the morning to get their temperatures checked and complete the system checker questionnaire. They get breakfast and walk to the classroom, and a big thanks to Hatch Learning pod supervisors for their help, support, and reinforcing the four pillars to COVID-19 safety protocols: health and hygiene, face coverings, physical distancing, and limiting gatherings. They are very proud of how their staff, students, and families are working to support the learning of their school community. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. Yes. And now, I'm sorry, Rosie, it is here. I must be so nervous. I missed it. But now our superintendent report.
Thank you very much, President Cortez, and you are doing just fine. And, this is what presidents, pretty soon this will just feel like old hat. I am very grateful to this board. I'm very grateful to this community. I'm very grateful to our team, and that includes my colleagues that you see pictured here, and to our teachers in the classrooms, and to our classified staff. I am very proud to work here, and there are a lot of loving people here, and it really resonates with me, the idea that kindness is a value that is a COSIDE value. I can't go to any campus without seeing the word kindness, kindness, kindness. I do believe that this is a time when we need that. I thank President Cortez for mentioning my email and my letter, and giving me encouraging words. I've gotten encouragement about the letter, and I've also got people push back on me, and I'm just going to, talk about it. I think sometimes it's our job to talk about what's being talked about. There have been some individuals who felt that the first paragraph perhaps, or the second paragraph, or maybe even the third paragraph were partisan politics, or that I was out of place. And for that, if they felt that way, I apologize. I also know that others have felt like something needed to be said, and that we need to remind people that we are taking care of one another, and that we want to provide tools to families and to our teachers to talk about what is a very difficult time in our country, no matter what our political beliefs are. So for that letter, for those who have suggested that I'm out of my lane or not doing my job, or that's something I shouldn't be doing, I apologize that you feel that way. And I've responded to the emails that I've received on that front, the 2 or 3 that I've received. And I value your opinion. In this community, it is my job to do some heavy listening. That is my job. I do believe that this is a time in our country where we need to pull together, that we need to acknowledge problems. It's not my job to fix blame. It's my job to help us fix problems. And I think sometimes we have to talk about what's being talked about. That said, I did end my letter with a description of Dr. King, as President Cortez talked about. And I do think there is a hope for us. I did choose that quote because when we talked about eject hope and love into the civilization, I did think that has something to do with the vaccine too. I think we are going to have more optimism and more hope as the vaccine comes. This week, I did issue a letter to all our staff too, describing the importance of symptom checking, which we all do, are expected to do every day, so that we can keep ourselves safe, our families safe, our colleagues safe, the people we work with, and our greater community safe. I did also talk about testing. We've been doing testing with Curative. Curative's been the news. It is a big player in testing lab, and there have been some concerns about some false negatives. And yet we know that San Mateo County, Marin County, Santa Clara County, Contra Costa County, and many people are continuing with this, and we look forward to Curative providing data FDA, and we'll continue that course. And if we need to change that testing, we will. But we do think it's important, and we've been piloting these testing, and we will get employees tested at their sites site by site later this month, as we've been doing these pilots, so that we can train our health aides to do that. Vaccinations, the question has come up about vaccinations. Everybody's talking about vaccinations. Yesterday, I also issued a survey from San Mateo County Office of Education so that they can get an idea and a read on what will be required for vaccinations. And I'm hoping that as more people get vaccinated, more people, particularly our employees, will feel more comfortable about being on campuses. I just want to say that I do have a lot of compassion for our employees. When I hear sometimes people saying, get kids on campus now. It would be impossible for us to do so currently because we're in purple. So that is one issue. I know that the Opening School Steering Committee is recommending that we remain in orange, but I also know that they met today and that it is possible that once people get vaccinated and as we all feel more comfortable coming back on campus, for ourselves, for our families, for our staff, for their families, and for the greater community, I think that we could see maybe that the Opening School Steering Committee will bring back another recommendation. But I'm very excited tonight that we have been approved, our plan has been approved by San Mateo County Office of Education, and we are able to turn that information item into an action item for this board to approve the plan now that the county office has approved that plan. There will be an opportunity for us to amend that plan going forward. And so I just want to have everybody make sure that we're all listening, that we're paying attention, and that we're working on getting schools opened. With regard to what Mr. Reardon said at the beginning, I agree that negotiations about the MOU have been based on science and that about a concern for health. And I do think it is a different tone and more productive tone for all of us. And I thank Mr. Reardon and Ms. Wall and the whole team, the negotiations team, for that. With regard to the comment about what we do for our employees. When we have an HR concern, I can't talk specifically about this, but I just want to say when we have a concern about someone and their risk, we talk to the County Department of Public Health and we check different factors. And then the County Department of Public Health actually advises us whether or not someone needs to be on campus or whether or not someone needs to quarantine. There were some employees who needed a quarantine, and there are some that did not. I can't speak to it in specifics, and I don't feel like I can do that without breaking HR laws, but I just want everybody to know that we take this very seriously. Hours and hours are spent, and we will probably need to look at contracting outside services also to help us with contact tracing and with testing going forward when we do get students back on campus, which I'm hoping is going to be sooner once these vaccinations. So I just wanted to address that since Mr. Reardon brought it up. I'm happy to speak about it offline, but there are certain things that I can't share because of HR laws. But I do want everybody to know we take this very seriously, and we do look at this case by case, and we do confer regularly, daily, with the department, San Mateo County Department of Public Health for advice and guidance on how we must operate. Again, I think this Stig brought up important points. I'm also very appreciative, as I am with CUTA, with CSEA, for working with us to get a tentative agreement. We will need to get that AB 1200 approved with the county, and we'll bring that back to the board. But I'm very happy, as Ms. McCammett also mentioned, that I think this is a ray of hope for us. It may get difficult going forward. We will need to continue to look at it scientifically. We will continue to put our budget hats on. At the end of the day, I don't take this personally. I do think of this as professionally and looking at balancing the good of all. And I was delighted this year to be able to have the finances and to be out of our financial troubles so that we could offer the well-deserved raises to our hardworking employees. And that will include CUTA, our teachers, CSEA, our classified staff, and our management and unrepresented staff need to receive that also. I do want us to fix our minds on compassion and empathy. Again, that means we have to listen to each other very carefully. We have to humanize one another. And we need to know that what we're really after here is making sure that we can help all people thrive and that we defend all people's abilities to succeed. Sometimes it can feel personal. I'm going to try to listen carefully and not take it personally and know with compassion that some people are suffering and that we need to help them. But I think the only way we do that is by listening and by talking and working to understand each other. So as we enter the new year, I do also hope that we can come out of last week's events, which I think were very alarming for some, the COVID situation, which is extremely tough on all of us, and work towards compassion and empathy going forward so that we can have loving kindness in the Coastside community going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. McFetrich. Next on our agenda, we have the consent items. Do I have a motion to move? Am I doing it right?
To approve.
I'll motion.
I'll second the motion to approve.
Thank you. And if we're gonna do roll call, Rosie, can you help me by reading out the names?
Can we do discussion on this before we do roll call? Do we do discussion first? Yeah.
If you would like to, if you have here's the thing, if you want discussion, you move and then you second and then you can discuss. So if you wanted to pull an item from the consent agenda or if you want to comment on it, I think this is an appropriate time to do so.
I just had one quick comment. I'm fine with going ahead with everything. I just wanted to make one comment was, in looking through the plans, I know there's some dress code stuff in there, and I would just throw it out there that I think it might be nice to, at some point, bring our dress codes up to date for the district. That's all. That's my only comment.
I can certainly bring that to the attention of our site administrators, and their health and wellness committees could address that. And I know that this has been a discussion topic in the district previously. So I think that's a fair point.
If I could make one comment since we opened it, I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who put the report cards together under the consent agenda. And this is more for public awareness. You can see what the demographics are and how many students are on each campus. And it's a really good snapshot of the details of each campus. And so I just think that that's kind of just that awareness piece for the public. You can find it, go back and look at the packet under consent.
Thank you, Kim. Any
I'll
more
just say
comments?
similarly, thank you for the huge effort around the safety plans too. It's like lots of pages, but if you actually read through it, they're really well done. So similarly, I would encourage anyone in the public as well, if you're interested in understanding how school safety is organized at our schools, these are incredibly informative documents. And yes, they're long, but it's the nature of the topic. So I think that's, it's a very worthwhile read if it's of interest. And you could skip around to sections that you're particularly interested in, like emergencies or environmental hazards or whatever. So thank you for that too.
Thank you. Any more comments before we vote? Okay.
Lisa,
Aye.
Maribeth,
Aye.
Rhea,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Passes 5+1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is general business. And we're going to start with the adoption of the American History Month proclamation. Dr. McFetrich, would you like to present? Speak
Sure.
about?
And if Rosie, if you'll pull up the proclamation, I'm not going to read it. I'm just going to try to model this for all my colleagues and remind the public too. We try not to read all our slides verbatim, but I do want the public to be able to see this as a visual artifact. Every year around this time in January, we bring a proclamation proclaiming February as African American History Month. It's fitting that we do so in January, of course, because of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s day of service that comes next week. And you will see the proclamation here. It basically recognizes the month of February, celebrates African American History Month, the contributions, the achievements, the actions, the words of African Americans who've contributed to success and prosperity. And it gives some history. In August 2019, it marked the 400 years since the first arrival of Africans to present day America, many of them as enslaved human beings in 1619. The United States Congress established the 400 Years of African American History Commission in 2019 so that we would know the history and so that we could remember that history. And in spite of the African slave trade that created an institution of white supremacy in this nation that we're still battling, I will tell you, I've been reading a wonderful book lately, Stamped from the Beginning, about this issue. Africans and African Americans have continued, have persevered, they've moved forward, have contributed. We've had a great American president, Barack Obama, the first African American president in 2008. In 2012, he was elected to serve a second term. In 2012, California historically elected the most African Americans to serve in the legislature. 2018 marked the highest African American members serving in the United States Congress, 55 members. You'll see a list of all these great inventions and contributions to our society that Africans and African Americans have given to us. And thus, African American History Month commemorates and celebrates all these achievements. And thus, we recommend that the board again this year adopt the proclamation naming February as African American History Month.
Thank you, Dr. McFetridge. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. There, go ahead. Put Freya down.
Any comments or discussion? I just want to also acknowledge how important it is and giving the space and the time for all African Americans and their contributions to our country, our community, and yeah, and thank you, Dr. McFetridge, for doing this.
And I'll just second that and just add to say, this is, I think, the timing couldn't be better. We've had a year of really increased awareness around the entrenched racism in our country, and to be able to reflect even just on the past year and how much that awareness has increased through the Black Lives Matter movement and over the summer and continuing since then, and the events last week. I think we have a lot in our world today to make this even more relevant than it was recognized to be previously. So I hope that we can all take the opportunity in our lives to really take this seriously and think about it, talk about it, learn about it, improve ourselves in our world with this reminder. So thank you for bringing it to our community.
I just want to reiterate that appreciation for bringing the proclamation, and also just to remind everyone that two other historic events happening kind of right now. The first African American female vice president being sworn in a week, African American and Asian, not Asian, but Southeast Asian woman as well. Sorry, a brain stop for a second. And also the first African American senator from the state of Georgia will also be sworn in. So there's some other firsts as well in that area. Just wanted to mention this. Sorry about the brain.
Any more comments before we go to a vote? All right. Mary Beth, no, you're not. I'm sorry. Do you have a comment?
No, I'm ready to vote.
Oh, you're ready to vote. Rosie, would you lead us on a vote roll call?
Lisa,
Aye.
Mary Beth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Passes 5+1. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the update on CUSD opening of school plan. Dr. McFetridge, would you like to start us with the discussion?
Yeah, I'm going to introduce Dr. Bhatia and Mr. Contreras and other staff members who will present on this, but I just do want to say, look, this is the thing that everybody is really like wanting to know. When are we going to return? And I know that Dr. Bhatia and Mr. Contreras met today with the Opening School Steering Committee. They put in so many hours with this team of parent representatives, teacher representatives, principals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a moving target. Again, my hope is that with vaccines coming, that it may be that these recommendations change, but I don't want to steal Dr. Bhatia's thunder, but I know that she is going to give in her last slide very good news for us. So I'm going to leave it there.
Good evening, Presidenta Cortez. And again, I'm very proud these next few weeks. My children are half East Asian, half Mexican. And I did share with them that we also have locally in my job a Latina Mexican-American president. So a very proud moment for me, and congratulations, President Cortez. And good evening, board members, colleagues, and community. So today we are here today to present to you a quick update on our opening of schools. Thank you, Rosie, for sharing the PowerPoint. If you don't mind skipping to the agenda, slide 2. So here is our agenda. We're going to provide a very brief update of the Governor Newsom Safe Schools for All plan, an update on our phase 3 opening of schools here at Cabrillo Unified, as well as San Mateo County input. Jesus will provide a more detailed plan on the 4 pillars as per some of the questions at our last board meeting. And also, as requested and discussed at last board meeting, we wanted to provide you with an update on how our students are performing academically, in particular right now, after we've completed quarter 1. And then also lastly, provide some next steps and an update from our opening of school steering committee tonight. If you go to the next slide, 3. And so here's just a quick overview, as you all know and are very well versed. The Governor Newsom published on the 30th of December a Safe Schools for All plan. And in this plan, basically has 3 major components. The first component is based around funding, $2 billion for an incentive for school districts to open early. And actually it's mid-February. And it does have other criteria. And again, the plan has not been released. And Jesus, I may need your help. There was something that was released today by the California Department of Ed, and maybe later on you can discuss that. But as soon as we learn more about the implications, we will continue to work with our steering committee as well as our site task force to see the implications. The second major part of this plan are a different type of 4 pillars, not San Mateo County safety pillars. It's different types of 4 pillars, which one, again, it's based on funding and support to safely reopen schools, 2, safety and mitigation measures for classrooms, which includes some PPE and funding and access to contracts that are at a discounted rate for PPE in order to fund those needs, increased needs in the classroom. 3, hands-on oversight and assistance for school, which is directly linked to the third component. And lastly, transparency and accountability for families and school staff, which would provide data and research around the safety of opening of schools. And again, as I mentioned, the last bullet, it would be access to a doctor from UCSF Pediatrics to provide support and guidance in the safe reopening of schools. And the next slide, Rosie, although I'm not going to read through these slides, but here you will again find a little more detail on the 4 different pillars. These are the first 2, and the next slide will give you more detailed information that you can read at a later date. In addition, in the first slide, there is a link that should the governing board or the community want to find out more information on this plan, you can definitely research. And again, this is not a mandate, it's not law, it is an incentive to reopen schools. And that was a question that did come up at today's steering committee. So at this point, there are certain criteria, and one of the criteria is to open by middle of February. But doing the math and knowing that the San Mateo County allows a couple of weeks to transition from purple to red and then to orange, we would not be able to meet that one criteria. And so again, it's still not 100% off the table, but at this point, what we mentioned, Jesus and I, to the steering committee is that this incentive at this time for this first round, we may not qualify. However, maybe if we are in orange in the month of March, we may be able to qualify for some funding. But again, this is a very new plan and we're still learning, and we'll continue to keep you posted on the implications for our own Cabrillo Unified School District. Next slide, Rosie. So now we're going to continue to the next piece of the presentation, which is the update for our opening of schools phase 3. Next slide, 8. And so here you're going to find a timeline. We were very busy during the month of December. We submitted the plan for approval on December 11th. The county provided input, very minor input. So we did go ahead and change the opening of schools phase 3 plan with very minor input, minor changes. Please note that that link is a live Google document that is linked onto our website. And we are labeling the most recent version is actually from January 7th. And on just yesterday, the County Office of Education approved our plan. And this afternoon, together with our opening of school steering committee, we saw our plan posted on the San Mateo County Office of Ed website. And taking a look at the public schools that have submitted a plan, I thought also it was important for you to all know that as of this moment, we have about 11 public schools in San Mateo County that have a submitted and approved plan for opening of schools. Mainly they are elementary schools, with one other school submitting a plan similar to ours of opening in the orange level. Next slide is Jesus. Now Jesus will go over, and Martha will go over the 4 pillars. And so I believe slide 10, Martha Ladd will be joining. And sorry, Rosie, I didn't give you that heads up.
Rosie managed to get me into the meeting. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting to you this slide, which is an update on our COVID testing. We held a very successful pilot in December where we were able to test 54 of our staff members. Testing went smoothly and efficiently. I really want to thank our district nurse, Susan Vanna, health aides, and our business department for participating in the training and doing a great job in rolling out the pilot. I was part of that pilot group, so I can tell you that the setup and how smooth the assessment went went really well. We invited about 1/3 of our total number of district employees. About that same number participated in the trial, and our results were that 100% of the people who were tested negative. Today we initiated, and continue to initiate our rollout where we did testing on 84 staff members. And we will be rolling out all site COVID testing beginning on the 27th. We'll do this regularly. At this point, we're scheduled to do this regularly on the 4th Wednesday of every month. And the testing will occur at the school sites to make it easier for our staff that work at the different sites. So we're looking forward to this rollout to continue to be successful. Thank you.
So on the next slides, I'm going to be sharing with the board the preparations that we have done for the COVID-19 and the reopening of our schools. In alignment today and aligned with that Safe Schools for All plan that the state of California has put out, this new document that was brought today is a framework for the reopening in-person instruction. So that is our new authority from the state of California, Department of Public Health. So it is those efforts that we have already, Leticia said, are in our phase 3 plan that was approved by the San Mateo County Office of Education. All of this material for these slides is in the plan that we're bringing to you as for approval today. This dynamic plan that will continue to change as the information continue to change contains this information. So we have worked around the 4 pillars, and we have procured, we have all of the materials that we would need, all the PPE that we will need to reopen our schools. Our principals are working with teachers to make sure that they set up their classrooms with this materials, with the PPE. So we have it. It's being deployed. Is principals and teachers are working on getting it into the classrooms. We have also a person at each one of the sites who is going to be functioning as the PPE coordinator that will make sure that all of this is in the teachers' classrooms. Next slide, Rosie. We also have cleaning and disinfection protocols that this that you see here is in our plan that is has been approved by the San Mateo County Office of Education. These are some of the details that we have in the plan that we will be then implementing. And the next slide is also in our plan. It's about the face coverings and the protective gear that we have secured. We have how we are going to be giving to each and every one of our classrooms the masks, the masks that we're going to be providing for our students, the first masks, etc. All that detailed in the plan. So we wanted to bring you to your attention that it is contained in the plan that we're bringing to you for approval today. And that's what I had to inform you about the update on what it is in the plan. Next slide.
Thank you, Jesus. So the next portion of the presentation is a quick summary of our academic performance. And the first slide will focus on the secondary level. So as you know, the pandemic has been a hardship for everyone. But as this data demonstrates, and this is not particular to Cabrillo, I mean, this is data that is seen across the country. This has been a particular challenge to a large portion of our students. So here with this high number of Ds and Fs, we need to ask ourselves what barriers are present on our remote learning program and how we can prevent this consistent student access to class and classwork. Now, foreseeing this gap in the fall, I definitely want to acknowledge our site administrator and teacher leadership teams that have already begun to foresee the gap in the area of growth for our students. And so sites have already begun professional development opportunities and opportunities to dig deeper into the gaps to determine what type of interventions our students may need in order to be successful in this new arena of learning, our remote learning, social and or academic. We also are looking into restructuring opportunities for content and reviewing the structures that are currently present, rituals, routines, assignments. We also will continue to support sites and site administrators to determine the critical content area and also dig deeper into what is behind the numbers. What are the individual students' needs of students that need that extra layer of support to be academic during this very difficult time? And if you move on to the next slide, we are this year using Lexia Rapid Assessment to measure ELA and ELD performance for students in grades 3 through 12. And on this slide, you are going to see the 4 different domains of language and skills that have been measured: word recognition, vocabulary knowledge, syntactic knowledge, and reading comprehension. And as you can see, we do have, and like, I want to go back to what Mary Beth mentioned, we do have some students that are being very successful. We also can't forget that side of the coin. And we also have students that need extra support. If you go on to the next slide, Rosie, this particular language assessment, the Lexia Rapid Assessment, we see a trend here. This data has been taken across the district, 3rd through 12th grade. The reading success probability, which you can see is in blue. And as you can see, and again, data is a tool for us, in particular at the actual site, for us to really look at what are the skills that are needed for us to ensure that our students are successful. And when you see 3rd going all the way through 12th grade, we see that there's still a lot of need of language support and intervention in the lower elementary grades. And again, language acquisition takes about, the average is 5 to 7 years. We have a large percentage of English learners, about 22%, 22%, but keeping in mind, when you look at the RFIP students, plus your EL students, we're looking at about 45%. So good to estimate that about half of our students are first language was another language other than English. And it takes a journey of 5 to 7 years. And as you can see in the trajectory, the data does match. And so just know that this is a very, like a 50,000 level overview. And Martha has done an amazing job with building a tiered level of intervention. This was shared with you, I believe it was a couple of board meetings ago. And we will continue to work at measuring the learning loss and determining how to close that achievement gap with interventions. And we're currently working with our amazing Debbie Silveria, who will be leading our summer school programs this summer, because we do anticipate having probably 3 to 5 times the need of serving students during the summer. And again, if we were able to open last summer, our goal would be to open in-person intervention to ensure that we catch the students that have the biggest need. Here would be the gray, the reading success probability below 30%. And then if, thank you, Rosie. So if you don't mind moving to the next slide. So here are some next steps. And so we will continue, and now we have a new document, right, Jesus, to add to our list. We'll need to continue to monitor all of our resources given by our San Mateo County, as well as the California Department of Education and the Department of Health. Just today, we did decide as a team the need to begin to meet on a bi-weekly basis with our opening of school steering committee, because things will be changing, hopefully, on the positive note, right? Hopefully we will start moving from purple to red and to orange. And so we'll definitely increase the frequency of those meetings and continue to learn and look at different opportunities for possibly opening sooner if given the opportunity. Sorry about that. We want to prepare school sites for the safe reopening of schools using the 4 pillars. And Jesus has already mentioned that. We're working with our principals, and we hope within the next couple of weeks, our school sites are set up with the 4 pillars, desks and markings. And again, the 4 pillars, I'm not going to repeat that. Another great piece of information that we wanted to share is that our learning pods have been very successful, but particularly even more successful at the elementary school. And so we are getting ready to open 3 new pods, one at Farallon View, El Granada, and Kings Mountain, to serve those students that need that extra layer of support. And again, our secondary task force teams are working on their opening of schools plan. And the goal would be to come to you in February with our secondary opening of schools plan. Now, the reason why we had to take a little longer and we weren't able to submit secondary with elementary is that secondary is very complex. We have class schedules, master schedules, teacher credentials, personnel need, and it's also the need to serve our students academically and socially. In the schedule, the master schedule itself presents a big challenge for us to try to jigsaw an opening of schools plan. But with that being said, I'm just very proud of the site task force that have representatives, parent representatives, teacher, ELAC representatives to support in building a secondary plan. And more to come on that. And lastly, tonight we're here to obtain approval from the governing board for our opening of schools TK through 5 plan as previously presented. And as we mentioned, has been approved by the San Mateo County Department of Health and San Mateo County Office of Education. In the last slide, Rosie, the last bullet is that when we came in December, we had an estimated start date of no sooner than the 19th of January. That would be next Tuesday. And at this time, we had a lot of conversation around how we should move that date. And so this is what we would like the board to approve, this phrase. The plan to open after 2 weeks in Orange, estimated around March 1st. And I'm going to pause right here. The reason why we also want March 1st is that as the county office is sending employees emails on the approximate date of start, this is a good date that we can submit to the surveys being given to us by San Mateo County Office of Ed. Because the worry is that if we don't have a start date, or we just put zeros or aren't able to answer it, the vaccines may be given to the districts that have an earlier start date. And so that's why we wanted to make sure we put a March 1st, because we kind of guesstimate that we definitely will start no sooner in the Orange, because we, again, would have to be 2 weeks in purple, 2 weeks in red, and 2 weeks in orange. So that leaves us at 6 weeks. In addition, let's say all things were to go very well and starting February 1st, and again, the vaccine conversation was popular this week. We had that conversation at the steering committee today. Even the first vaccine is given, then you have 21 days. Then the second vaccine is given, and then the full effect of the vaccine doesn't happen until 2 weeks after that. So it is about a month. So hence that's the rationale behind the March 1st. And again, we wanted to put the following phrase: this recommendation will continue to be evaluated as vaccinations become available, because the whole steering committee team mentioned, and also our staff during the surveys, that if the vaccines were to become available, staff would be more comfortable returning. And so the conversation did come up of who do we talk to ask if vaccines can be given to the teachers that are coming back in person. And we didn't have that information. Dr. McFetrich does a great job with keeping us posted on a daily basis. And so if you do have the opportunity, if you happen to be at a board meeting with the county office, that's what our steering committee has asked, that can we have that particular group of teachers in elementary who are coming back in person to be on the priority list, and I don't know, make a plea. Because if we could have the vaccines earlier, then we would reevaluate and send out a survey and potentially begin prior to March. Because really our staff is very interested in coming back and serving our students as well as our parents. And
I just want to thank Dr. Bhatia, Mr. Contreras, Ms. Ladd for doing all this work with this opening school steering committee, the parent representatives, the teacher representatives, our other employee representatives, our administrator representatives. This has been a very difficult process, I know, and they have wrestled with it because I know they think how important it is, number one, to get our kids back in school, but also to protect the lives and welfare of everybody. I do want to point out, when people get vaccines, we think things may change and we can make an amendment and maybe people feel more comfortable, and we are hoping the vaccines will come. But I am recommending, and I stand by the opening school steering committee and the work that collective have done. And I am recommending to this board, as we discussed back in October, that once the San Mateo County Office of Education approved our plan, we would bring it back to you, and staff does recommend approval of the plan tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Bhatia, and everybody who did all this work, just like Dr. McFetridge said. So I now do a motion to approve. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, so now we can open up for discussion. Do you want to start, Kim?
Sure. I had 4 questions. I'm going to narrow it down to 2 because as we went along, I'm prioritizing here. I noticed that in the return to school plan on page 21, it states, should CUSD reopen to in-person instruction, we will not return to remote learning, but will increase frequency of staff testing if the county COVID-19 positivity rate changes from orange to red or purple. Is that similar to other districts?
Yes, and actually that is what's recommended by the California Department of Ed and San Mateo County of Ed, in particular the Newsom plan that was just published. It's recommended that, yes, once we reopen in the orange, we hope we stay orange and yellow, and then hopefully we're in a better place, but there's always that chance that we might reverse back to purple. So if we were to reverse back to purple, then we would look at increasing the frequency of testing and make sure that we adhere to the recommendations of the county and the state to ensure that all our staff and students have a safe workplace.
And I appreciate also that there's been guidance on school closure and different percentages and rates that would trigger closing schools again. Just to comment on the data on D's and F's and the Lexia reading and comprehension, it appeared that while the 2 aren't mutually exclusive, my guess is the F's are probably more about missing assignments or not being connected and engaged. That's probably a more reflection of that rather than learning loss. If you look at the Lexia description, there was a consistent increase and looked like respectable reading comprehension levels there. So again, I think we have to be a little bit gentle with our interpretation of learning loss. And again, I know I kind of do the air quote thing, but I do believe children are resilient, and to the extent we can, I don't know what, Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENTP, so I'll think out of the box and look at different ways of engaging students. And when I was in the classroom, I had the luxury, and it is a luxury, of teaching project-based learning. So one of the, when I would hear kids complain about assignments, I would turn it around and I would then create your own assignment. And how are you going to demonstrate you can follow through on what you think would be appropriate learning? I'm not saying I would open up Pandora's box for everybody that way, but as a parent, I think I would be less concerned about a grade than seeing students engaged. And, you know, I know that even apart from a grade in the classroom, those parents that are able to go out and go into the woods and take pictures of mushrooms on the weekends, that those kids are learning something. And that there are lots of ways to demonstrate that, and maybe we just need to look for it. So, and I'm not saying that the whole school district can accomplish that, but let's, as parents, be aware of what's possible. That's all.
Thank you, Kim.
I have a couple of questions and comments. My first comment will be, again, thank you for this, like all the work that you guys are doing here on the screen, and all the opening school steering committee, all the groups that I even referred to earlier that have this, you know, at the top of their minds, that are discussing this actively and listening and brainstorming. It's really been amazing. I want to have a couple like specific questions, which I heard you say, and I couldn't hear the actual number you said, when the elementary school facilities you said will be ready, like in terms of like implementing the 4 pillars in the next, did you say 2 weeks? So like early February?
Yes, Jesus. We said about
Aiming-
February, right?
Yeah, we have been working with our principals and our administrators to have it ready by February 1st. Again, it is engaging the teachers and in the setting up of their classrooms.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That helps.
That's the goal. Let's say that is the goal.
Yeah, and knowing that we probably aren't looking at opening those campuses till like for a month, we have that's good, because it's like gives us a lot of wiggle room, which is great. So that's awesome. My other question, the data that you showed us on D's and F's, can you just go flash back to that? So I'm not sure I understood. Are those like the total numbers of DNFs, or these are the students that received any DNFs, Ds or Fs?
It's the total number. And Rosie, would you mind? That's slide, I believe it's slide 15 of the presentation.
And I realize while you're pulling it up, I can say, I realize like the main message is the magnitude of difference, and just eyeballing them, a lot of cases. And you can notice it, as we probably expected, with the 6th graders and the 9th graders for whom the environment is new, probably struggled proportionately more than the upper grades that are used to the system and the school and all that. So I think it's notable that just from my eyeballing, it looked like maybe 2.5 fold as many. If I were to just eyeball and add up those numbers, that's pretty significant. I agree. I think Kim kind of alluded to this too, and it's come up in other conversations as well, that I think we have to be really clear and listen to all the voices that are involved, you know, from the teachers to the students to the counselors. I think have a lot of expertise also to really understand like what's behind this, because sometimes it definitely is like they weren't able to learn through this format or through whatever format they were in, right? Because obviously we had a pretty reasonable baseline of Ds and Fs. In some cases, it's just like they're just not engaged and they just were missing assignments, and that no doubt contributed to Ds and Fs, because, you know, so I appreciate that. I know the teams are looking at kind of how you reduce those administrative aspects of what looks really bad, and we don't end up sending kids to summer school for things that are really not like learning related. It's more like they just got confused by school loop or, you know, whatever it is. So yeah. So these numbers are the numbers of Ds and Fs, or the numbers of students that got Ds or Fs? Do you know?
The numbers of Ds and Fs. And
okay, the total number. So there might be like clusters of kids.
Yes, and so you may have one child with multiple Fs. It's not by student, and so really,
the total number.
Now you have the improvement science, the Carnegie Foundation improvement science. Back in my day, it was a PLCs and the Dufour PLC model. But bottom line is the real work, this is a very 50,000 level view, but the real work will come in actually looking at the students, looking at those patterns, and how we can support students at each site. So each site leading and giving professional development. And like I said, our administrators have already begun to do work around analyzing and figuring out what is the gap and what are some tools and some strategies that we can use to close that gap. And you see, so the first chart, it's just academic year, it's not cohort. And the second chart, we just kind of flipped it, and it is by cohort, the Ds and the Fs. And yet, and again, it's only one data piece There are multiple other data pieces, and like you said, it's really looking at an individualized, I wouldn't say like an individualized plan for each of these students to say, what is the need of this child? Is it a social need? Is it an academic need? Was it just, like you said, the transition from 6th to 9th? Because we do see that those transitional grades had a larger increase in the number of Fs. And again, the work, this is just, we're scratching the top of the surface, and we're just really proud of our administrators and our site teacher leadership teams that are meeting and discussing ways to support and give the necessary interventions of for our students.
That's great. I have one more question, unless Kim, you have it on this topic.
It's specific to this, and specifically the Ds and Fs. Is there an analysis of teachers that are giving the Ds and Fs at a much higher rate than other teachers?
That analysis is happening at the site, and so our principals are working on that level of analysis. So of course, we can't share, that's confidential data. I mean, even the student data is confidential, but that work is happening at the site and looking at all aspects of this in determining what is the need to support the students, as well as give the tools needed at the site to support with professional development needs.
So I'll just close on this part and just say thank you for sharing this with us, and as well as the Lexia data. I know that's hard, but that transparency is so important. And as Sean kind of alluded to earlier, and it's one of my favorite quotes from James Baldwin, like, until you know until you face your challenges, you can't fix those challenges. So it's really, I think, speaks a lot to the quality of the teams that we have that are willing and able to do this and to dig in deeper on that. So thank you for that. And knowing that we look at it with accountability, but no shame, right? Like, this is like you said, this is not surprising. This is like the trend across the country. So I'm grateful that we're looking at this. I had a question on your last statement for the recommendation from the Opening Schools of Steering Committee. Can you clarify? So is the plan, like, does that statement then pertain to TK to 5th? Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. And then so maybe we
at
might
this time,
yeah. At this time, the plans are, and then we could probably add another sentence that you had earlier, which was about the secondary schools plans are in development due to the more complex situation. It might be helpful if we just add that for broader understanding.
So just add another sentence of secondary school plans are under development.
Yeah, like whatever you had on the previous slide, I think was helpful, because it kind of begs the question, right? When we say this is the plan for elementary, for TK to 5th, and then plans for 6th through 12th are, whatever you said in the previous slide, I think that was very well stated. And that just kind of has us all on the same page about the full picture. And just on that front, as I alluded to earlier, I was really thrilled to be able to join the Health and Wellness Committee meeting at the high school earlier this week. It feels like last week, but it was just such a, thanks to the amazing leadership by John Nazar and Ms. Deanna Tower as well, and the great group of people that were there to just be able to have an open conversation. Challenging, it's so complex, and especially when we kind of look at implementing the hybrid models we've been discussing, I think to have conversations as we did there about just thinking outside the box and thinking not instantly, we have especially in such a highly regulated environment, it's so easy to say, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, right? But to have this open brainstorming opportunity. And it was so cool to have kids there. We had 3 high schoolers, and to hear their voices, like they have such great ideas and good input. That would just say, just in general, if we can have more conversations with our kids about this as well, and with our families too, and just engage open, non-judgmental conversations about what could be, right? Like, could we come in for just one class, like one subject, or could we come in for something social? So it's almost like I wonder if for the secondary schools, the question is not when do we come back, but how do we come back?
Yes, and actually, now that you mentioned that, one of the recommendations today is to form a focus group of students to ask them, what do they feel that we can do to, yes, in reopening, but also in the engagement piece.
Yeah.
What can we do to engage you, the 6th through 12th grade? And so those will be conversations that will follow up with the site-based task force teams, so that, because again, student voices, I mean, we're serving our students, and especially in secondary, I believe that they're our main customers. They will be able to let us know. And so that's our next step as well, is to survey our secondary students, because right now we do see the light at the end of the tunnel for elementary, but for secondary, I mean, again, they're working on a plan. And so that plan will include some engagement recommendations, because if we're starting with elementary, should all go as planned, secondary may not return until April or so. Unless, right, and that's why we put that that one small little caveat or sentence. We want to make sure that we're meeting every 2 weeks, and again, talking about the date, because if we find out in a week or two that we can get vaccines sooner, that may change the whole scope. And I kind of have read through some of the county programs about a handful of districts. They have revised their programs. And from what the county mentioned to me, it just takes a few days, unless it's a major change. But the plan that we submitted, and again, and like Sean mentioned, we could not have done it with our task force, our opening of schools steering committees, our focus groups. We could not have done it. That's the framework, and the framework of the plan was approved. Right now, all we're inserting are the site-based plans. So I believe it'll be very easy, and it may only take a few days for it to get approved.
That's fantastic. And I just think about, I'm so appreciative that you're going to go kind of proactively to students, because they have such input, great input about, like, at the end of the day, it's their lives, right? And we can kind of know what we know. But I think it'd be interesting in those conversations to think too about, like, what do they, Mary Beth kind of hinted at this earlier, like, and different kids might like different aspects of it. Like, you get to sleep in a little bit more. You get to kind of do it your, school in your pajamas. And maybe some of us have judgments about that, but maybe for kids, if that means a lot and they're more comfortable, like, I'm just thinking openly about it as we talk with them, to just really see what do they like about things that we can maintain, and what do they not, and what do they feel like is some potential, like, are they excited about outdoor classrooms? Like, how do they feel about these other opportunities? It'd be really cool. So thank you for that. So I think that's my other thing was, I just had one comment around the changing dynamics of the pandemic situation. Is for sure we're kind of like, the light is at the end of the tunnel, and as we're looking now, when we go back to red, we'll be in a different kind of red than we were in the fall, when we were facing an increasing pandemic because of the upcoming holidays. And versus going back to red now, I think it's, most public health officials and scientists will agree we're less likely to slide back into purple now, next when we go to red, because we'll have the vaccine coming. We have the vaccine being implemented, better weather, not the holidays. The ongoing challenge would be pandemic fatigue, of course, and other strains on
Just
families
wait till
after
ski week.
a year of isolation or quarantine, or shelter in place. But I think there's some things for sure working in our favor, and that's pretty exciting. So step by step by step. So thank you for leading the charge to both of you, Leticia and Jesus, and under Sean's tutelage and with the committee.
Thank you, Sophia. Does anyone else have any more
comments? Yeah, I have a couple just quick ones. Reiterate appreciation and thanks for all the hard work by the staff members, but also the parent and teachers on the different committees. And then I just have two comments, kind of, I've mentioned them before, but I do think it's it's really important to continue to keep the idea of student testing for COVID on our radar. I understand that there's some pilots going on in the county, maybe the possibility of the 15-minute or antigen test just to do surveillance. I think that that will also help ease people's minds as we get more kids back there. And I know that there's, LA Unified, Alameda, other schools have already been doing student testing. And again, I think that could be really helpful for surveillance, but also for contact tracing. I think those are things that we should look into. Again, I've had several experiences getting testing on the coast, and it is not that easy. And it can oftentimes have significant lag times. So again, I think we should keep that in mind. Vaccines are great. They're the light at the end of the tunnel, but they also are rolling out pretty slowly. So we need to make sure that we're keeping that testing and keeping the forefront of what we can do for our own students and staff as well. So I'd love to see a little bit more on that at some point. And I also, at some point, I mentioned this before, but we talk about the cleaning schedules and other kinds of things. And at some point, it'd be good to see an assessment of actual, and whether, I don't know how we get this, whether it's broader numbers or smaller, like what is that funding looking like? Is that our current staff able to do that for our existing learning pods? How would it look as we ramp up open? So as we get closer to that point where we're having more students back and we're implementing these things, it would be important to look at what those costs are, what those personnel needs are, and kind of have a greater sense of how it's actually happening on the ground. So that's something that I hope that we can look at in the future. And I also just appreciate your acknowledgement that this is a moving, this is a document that we can change, and as things change, and of course we don't know exactly what's going to be happening in the future with all this, but there's hope, and it's good to get this started, to get it approved by the county, but also get it approved here. So that was all.
I just want to add one thing too for awareness that with regards to the vaccines, the Pfizer vaccine is actually approved for people ages 16 and up. And that's important because that means that feasibly some of our older students at the high schools will be eligible to get that vaccine too. So that is just something important to know. Moderna's not, it's 18 and up. And I don't know about the third one that's in the pipeline that's likely to be approved next. So I just want to make sure that as a community, we're aware of that too. And likely those 16 to 18-year-olds won't be high on the priority list, but I think once the machine gets moving for these vaccinations, it'll, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Sorry.
As a point of privilege, I just need to come in and say something here. Look, testing is very important. We can mandate it of staff. We can't mandate it of students. I do think there is a value, as Ms. McCammett has said, in trying to provide testing to students if we can get it made available. It is being piloted at Pescadero La Honda, Ravenswood, and Redwood City. And so we have been in contact with San Mateo County Office of Education about being able to offer that. We can't demand it. We can demand testing of employees and sent a letter this week doing so. The most important thing that we want to remind people of is, the symptom checking, taking your temperature, this type of thing is very important for all our employees. And when we come back to school, it will be required of our students to have taken their temperature and done their own symptom check to get back on campus. I will also speak to Ms. McCammett's comment about custodian and health, both. I think they're very important comments. We're currently looking about whether or not we could contract out services to be able to help us on the health needs, because the health aides are district nurse. They spend all day, every day, are going to spend all day, every day doing contact tracing and all this work, testing, et cetera, et cetera. We are going to need help in that regard. With custodial, we will have to investigate with CSEA. It will become something that we'll have to talk to with them about if we can add more services and hire out more services. I want to remind everybody, the funding to me is not as big an impediment as the human capital issue. The idea of getting staffed up to do this. When people talk about AM, PM cohorts, there is a more intense cleaning and disinfecting. We would certainly need to either hire more custodians or contract out. If we're going to test 3,000 students or even just our K-5 students at like 1,200, that is a huge issue. Even with antigen testing, quick testing, you have to test them. You have to keep them in one place for 15 minutes. It is a magnitude order. And it is exactly what people are criticizing the governor's plan about, quite honestly. With much regard for the governor, I think he is trying to provide resources, bless him, and trying to push districts to do what we know needs to happen. We need to get kids back in school. We do. But we need our employees and our kids to be safe. And so that is the issue that we're grappling with. We will continue to look forward to presenting to the board ways that we could do it, recommendations, and see if we can hire out. Mr. Contreras will be looking at this. Dr. Bhatia will be looking at this. Ms. Ladd and Ms. Vanna will be looking at this. Mr. Owens will be looking at this. We are trying to staff up and try to get the resources that we can do it.
Thank you, Sean, for mentioning that, and Freya also for triggering that comment. And so I did also want to say that today, it's today's steering committee, we are, and the task force teams are looking into, so the only reason we aren't able to offer an A-B schedule where students come in 4 days a week, cohort A in the morning and cohort B in the afternoon, is that we do not have custodial staff. We've flown positions, nobody applies, but Jesus, and we are exploring to see, can we contract out, like Sean said, and can we offer that model for more families? Because ultimately what our teachers have recommended is that the current hybrid model is basically only seeing students twice a week for synchronous live instruction for a longer day, but synchronous, but then 3 days it's asynchronous. So students are actually seeing less of a live teacher. And so should we be able to align and find that extra staff, for custodial staff, we would again resurvey, and again, the fluidity of the plan, that should schedules change, we would need to submit an amendment to the county office. And right now we are looking into potentially seeing if first grade can be added, because at this time it's kinder, TK and K are the only grades where we have, with our current staff, we're able to offer cleaning between the morning cohort and the afternoon cohort. So again, more to come as we continue to explore these options.
It is part of the reason we can't hire janitors because the pay is so low? Or the pay is low? Or
Could
they just
be.
We have been some positions posted and we don't have takers. Payment, and that's what I hear, that our pay is low, and we don't have the candidates that would come and help us do this. So
you think the candidates are coming because they're not out there, or because the pay isn't low, because the pay is low, or do you know?
well, the high cost of living that's not in our area, you know, puts many of our custodials would-be staff not able to, we're not able to attract from the outside or from the neighboring places. We are blessed with those who have been with us for a long time, who are very loyal to our district, and who have many of our staff has grown up in our and gone to our own schools in here. So that's the loyalty that we have from many of our employees. But we will continue the quest.
Thank you. Any more comments? Seeing that there are none, we're gonna move to a vote. Rosie, could you lead us on a roll call?
Yes. Lizette,
Aye.
Marybeth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Thank you. Passes 5+1. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the approval of the Unity Physical Ed course, and this is an informational action. I'm sorry.
It's an action item.
It's an action item. And Dr. McPetrich, would you lead?
Yeah, I just want to give context about this. We've been talking in this district. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, we've been talking in this district about increased efforts at inclusion, whether it's the Early Childhood Education Center. This is, when I saw this was music to my ears. Dr. Bhatia, Ms. Ladd, and the teachers who worked on this, I'll let them take it away. But again, I think the big word here is this is about inclusion and getting more opportunities for all our students to understand one another and to learn together in a free and appropriate public learning environment that doesn't separate them.
President Cortez, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Boysen and Miss Angel Gonzalez Hildmeyer. She is the adaptive physical education teacher in the district, and she came to me at the beginning of the school year with this idea about the Unity physical education class. And Mr. Boysen and Miss Angel have worked very closely together to bring this presentation here to you tonight. Mr. Boysen, do you want to introduce the presentation?
Yes, I do. Please. Thank you very much. Good evening, CUSD Governing Board leadership and community. It's a pleasure to represent Half Moon Bay High School and advocate for site leadership's support for a Unity physical education course. We are very excited about continuing to foster the physical and psychological benefits of fitness up to our students' post-secondary transition, and to continue to build upon positive relationships already established between special and general education students. Ms. Angel Gonzalez Hildmeyer will lead with the presentation and provide you with the details to really flesh out the memo and explain whatever questions you may have. Ms. Ladd will also contribute, as well as me, if you have other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, President Cortez. It's really good to say that. Congratulations. Members of the school board and Dr. McFetridge. I'm excited to present to you all an opportunity to participate in a new elective class called Unity PE, which is designed to bring together students of all abilities. Next slide, please. Unity PE will consist of 50% of the class that have IEPs and the other 50% consisting of typical peers. The purpose of this class is to promote social inclusion through sports, recreational and physical fitness activities, as well as building bridges of understanding. Next slide, please. Peer mentoring will be a major focus in this class. By creating units of study with varying abilities to socialize, communicate, and demonstrate learning competencies, all students will learn to problem solve and learn about disabilities and their impact. Next slide, please. Our district has participated in Special Olympics for some time now. Special Olympics is an international organization dedicated to empowering individuals with intellectual disabilities to become physically fit, productive, and respected members of society through sports training and competition. It also provides year-round athletic competition for children and adults with intellectual disabilities. I am very proud to have been a part of getting Special Olympics to our high schools by hosting events such as the basketball and soccer tournaments the last 2 years. I love these events. Our kids and teachers really value these important social and sports tournaments where they can develop physical fitness, interact with others, and demonstrate good sportsmanship. Unity PE will help our kids prepare for our Special Olympics tournaments by sharing sports training and competition experiences. Next slide, please. In addition to promoting social inclusion, ability awareness, and preparing for our Special Olympics events, Unity PE will also foster and encourage transitional independent living skills. The importance of health, recreational, physical fitness activities that can be done throughout one's lifespan will not only be focused on in this class, but ideally the positive emotional regulation outcomes will also be experienced by all. Unity PE hopes to habituate these lifelong fitness skills for their entire life. And last slide, please. Here are several pictures of our students engaging in our yearly Special Olympics bowling tournament, as well as at our high school when we hosted the basketball tournament. My philosophy and passion in teaching this class is similar to the unified sports philosophy that training together and playing together is a quick path to friendship and understanding. By providing opportunities to develop physical fitness and engage in recreational sports that can be done for a lifespan, where every single person is accepted and welcome regardless of ability, the learning outcomes will easily extend from the court or gym into the hallways, lunchrooms, into the whole community. Having sports in common is just one more way that preconceptions and false ideas are swept away. I thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much for that presentation. And it's always a pleasure to not only hear that information, but also see the pictures. And I, unfortunately, because of work, I've missed being there. So, but please keep me in mind. And I one day look forward to being there in person. Thank you. And I'm gonna open it up now for comments.
Point of order, as this is an action, I think we need a motion.
Yeah, I just caught myself. So do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Now it's the discussion. Would anyone like to, you're unmuted. Who's unmuted?
I just have a question. Am I correct in assuming that the students that are not on IEPs get full PE credit for this class?
Yes, that's correct.
Most excellent. And I just want to say from my experience, my junior year in high school, I had an opportunity, it wasn't phys ed, but to work with special ed and developmentally disabled the entire year. And there is so much learning that goes on in a situation like this. And so thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. That's all. I think it looks great. Go ahead, Freya.
Yeah, I was going to say similar. I just wanted to thank Martha and Andy and Angel, of course, for creating this course and bringing it to us. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity. And I love the opportunity for the friendships and the learning and the peer mentoring and the high school community skills that will be created there. Also, I wanted just to call out one of the parts of it that will also expose people to career opportunities in impacted fields in special education and in teaching and other things. And I think that that's a really important part, just to create other avenues for our students who are interested in finding ways where they can have such a wonderful impact and on their community and on other communities. So I think that's a great part of it. They can follow in your footsteps, Angel, be another one of you.
We need a lot of special ed teachers out here, so.
Exactly. So thank you so much for bringing it. I'm glad that it's before the board right now. Thank you, Angel.
I have two additional appreciations, and that's basically was one of them is just to hear your passion in speaking about your kids and this course. We haven't met before, but I really, really appreciate that, and I'm really impressed with it, and I'm thrilled that we have that for our kids. The second piece is just to have this come to the board. It's similar to when we gave us an update recently about the preschool initiative, Sean and Leticia, just the fact that you got, like, as a team, our district is, district, I mean, in the grander sense, our whole school community is working on these really important initiatives this, throughout the time that we're like trying to keep our heads above water on COVID and the pandemic and remote learning. I think it's just a testament to the deep level of commitment that you have and the expertise and the resiliency, and you're modeling it all for our kids. So I'm, really grateful for all of that as well. So I know you're kind of like in a million different directions, but it's all kind of going towards what's best for kids. And that comes through from everybody. And I'm really appreciative of that. I had one question because I'm still kind of learning more about the special ed space. What are the students at the high school that are, this would be special day classes and IEPs not in special day classes, or just special day?
Any students who have an IEP could be considered as part of the 50% of the students with IEPs. And
what are those students typically participating in or not participating in now, like with regards to PE?
For students who are graduating with a diploma, they have the same requirements. And so for physical education, this will expand their options for electives. as an elective class.
So it would be basically like a different PE option.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's really cool. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This sounds amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead, Martha.
I just wanted to say that how much I appreciate Miss Angel's very innovative, and she's worked really hard to get to the place where she has her adaptive physical education certification, and she's amazing with the kids. And I also want to thank Mr. Boysen, because when she had this idea, I knew if I steered her towards Mr. Boysen, he would get all that nitty-gritty work to bring it here to you today in fine form. So I really appreciate Mr. Boysen's work on this as well. And I think it is going to be a favorite for our students, a favorite class for our students. So I'm glad that it all came together the way it did.
Lastly, I just want to interject. I think this is going to be something powerful that all of our kids are going to need, especially after not being socialized with anybody. And that empathy and inclusion part is going to be really needed, I think, when we start back to our, normal lives.
Thank you. And yes, I agree with the empathy. And, even myself, I have a severely autistic relative who's in the school district. And my daughter, as much as she tries to engage with him, she doesn't quite know how to. So the fact that this is being exposed and they have an opportunity, I mean, as a community, there's no words for it. Thank you so much. Thank you. And any more comments? Any questions, comments? Okay, seeing that there's none, thank you very much. And we're moving on to, no?
I think you do need to vote now.
Just kidding. Okay, let's vote, people. Rosie?
Lizette,
Aye.
Mary Beth,
Aye.
Rhea,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Item passes 5+1. Thank you.
Angel, you are a champion for inclusion, for empathy, and for caring for all the students who are going to benefit from this. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank you. You are a champion. Andy, thank you. Martha, all of you who are involved with this, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.
Good to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will move to item D, I'm just going to say QKA Facilities Master Plan for Half Bay High School. Dr. Mefetrich, would you?
Yeah, I want to give context to this one for sure. We've been working on a facilities master plan and looked deeply at El Granada and Farallon View, worked with those communities to dream big. And as Mr. Quattrochi will tell you, every facilities master plan winds up being too ambitious for the dollars that you can spend in a bond. I don't think I've ever seen one where everybody dreams of their dream school and you have enough money for it. And the last time we presented on that, the board directed us to look at Half Moon Bay High School because we know that that also serves 1,000 students and has great needs. So we were very lucky to have Lyanne Schuster and Mark go back to the high school, just not to engage with the community, but just to look at, okay, what would modernization look there? Because this board needs to have a lot of scientific data. Back to this thing. You need the data on what it's going to cost to bring Half Moon Bay High School up to modern standards. And you need that for El Granada Farallon View. That will come for the elementary schools, another presentation from Mark and Lyanne and their colleagues in February. But we needed to get this piece done too, because the board and the public need to understand what all the needs are. So look, a lot of people are going to say, oh my gosh, we don't have enough money to do all these projects. I want to remind people, at some point we will be eligible potentially for more state funding, millions of dollars worth potentially. And at some point, we might get out of this litigation with a particular building to be unnamed, where we might get some money to bring to bear too. And at some point, we might be able to look at reusing facilities that are surplus properties to our benefit for this. But we have to have these discussions. And I just want to preface this. People will go to this conjecture, you know, but this is the work we need to do with the architects so that they can tell us what the costs will be so that we can have difficult conversations about how are we going to spend the money, what are the phases going to be, and how we prioritize this. So Mark and Lyanne, I hope that gives context to what you needed to before you present tonight. And I also want to say, welcome Jim Crawford. Thank you for being here too. And I know you've all been working with Jesus on this, so thank you for doing this difficult work.
Thank you, Dr. McFetrich. We really appreciate this. I just want to echo something Sean said. I have 33 years of doing public school work as an architect. And one day we'll get to do a master plan where the scope of the master plan perfectly aligns with the funds available for the first phase. And that's when I'm going to retire. So this is quite in line with exactly how the process works. And it's just all part of our process of first understanding where we are, and then collectively with the board and with the staff's help, finding out our priorities. So with that, perhaps we could start, Rosie, the slideshow. I would like to introduce Lyanne Schuster. Of course, the board's familiar with her. Lyanne and I, and another woman in our office, Lisa Sparks, who's on here, have been diligently working away. So let's go and go to the next slide, Rosie. What I wanted to do is I'm going to turn this over to Lyanne to walk through what we found at the high school. But I thought it was valuable, and Dr. McFetrich did a fine job of recapping sort of where we were. We saw you in June, and we had the master plan work for the El Granada School and for Fairlawn View. And from that, it was felt that it would be good to then look at the high school. So we're here today mostly to talk about our work at the high school, doing our facilities assessment. And just kind of a reminder, this is a step as we had done for the elementary schools, where we're looking at the state of your schools, whether we're looking at the roofs or mechanical electrical systems, whether we're looking at accessibility or finishes. And it really is looking at what we can do to improve the school. You know, it's as any school of its age, it's showing its years to meet your current educational program. We didn't look at future educational programs. We really were focused on what needs to be done to bring the school into the 21st century. So we worked with mechanical, electrical, civil engineers and ourselves, excuse me, and walked the facilities. And of course, we observed some good work that's been done, and we're able to find out what else needed to be done. And so I'm going to let Lyanne walk us through this, and then I'm going to come back and do some summary of sort of where we stand looking at the schools, at all the schools we've investigated. So at this, Lyanne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks. Okay, next slide, please. So as Mark mentioned, where we are to date is that we've gone and looked at, we walked the site and we had our engineers. We went to Half Moon Bay High School. We had our civil, electrical, mechanical engineers with us so that we could look at everything. We were graciously let into every room by your custodial staff. And then as a follow-up to our site visit, we also had Zoom calls with Jesus, with your IT folks, your head custodial staff at the high school, to talk to them about things that we can't see, but that they know of at the schools, like I don't know, if a drain line is plugged, or if you have, you know, any particular things that are operational that we wouldn't see by just looking. So so that's the process that we go through. And again, as Mark said, the goal for this is so that we can have a kind of a baseline of what your facility physically looks like now, and what the infrastructure is, what the existing condition of the buildings inside and out is, so that you have all the information you need to make decisions about priorities. Next slide. So at the exteriors, we noticed some common threads as we walked around the campus. And so we kind of listed those things that we saw as kind of repeat customers items. And the district has actually had a roofing consultant do an evaluation of an assessment of all the roofs on the site. And so you can see a picture of one of them on the upper right there. Some of the common things that we saw had to do with the building, the different ages of the different parts of the campus and your proximity to the coast. Nothing that we saw was surprising. It's all, to be expected. But some of the other common things we saw are just some exterior finishes that have weather damage. You see some on the upper left, and also on the mechanical deck, there's some rust because you're right near the ocean. And some finish repairs of the B building there. You can see where that soffit needs to be repaired. Those are pretty typical and not unusual. Next slide, please. This is just some more examples of similar things. Some exterior finishes, some mostly due to age and weather. The buildings are well used, and you have a lot of climate elements in Half Moon Bay. Next. So then we move to the interiors, and again, nothing that we saw was unexpected. We saw a lot of things just based on these being very well used spaces over a long period of time. So, the finishes are worn. You can see some of the carpeting. There's also some items that should be upgraded to current accessibility code. They were fine when they were installed, but codes have changed. There's some damage to finishes. You do have, you recently had almost all the lighting replaced. All of your lighting is great. It's all energy efficient LED fixtures. And there's been some mechanical and projects, I understand, and some restroom updates. So most of what you see here is finishes, and the electrical, the lighting is, as I said, the lighting has been mostly updated. So the electrical items noted here are mostly telecom and classroom AV systems to bring them up to current programmatic needs. And then in some of your older buildings, there maybe aren't sufficient outlets, power outlets. Next slide. These again are just some more examples of some finishes that have just given their all, and they're ready to be replaced, along with some accessibility upgrades, some fixtures, and that's most of it. Next slide, please. So the next thing we did is we gathered all this information from walking the site. And we provided all of this information to a professional estimator for a preliminary cost estimate. And so I'll be sharing the summaries of that next. But what these costs include are all the construction costs with the contractor markups, all the things that come up during constructions that we want to kind of allow for ahead of time, like things that, especially in modernization, things that you're going to find when you get into a building. That's that change order and design contingencies. Non-construction costs are all the things that the contractor isn't paid for, also permitting, the architect, testing, et cetera. And then we also asked him to provide what the cost would be at the midpoint of what we felt would be the construction period, which would be 2023, so that you're not surprised by potential price, cost increases from time spent between now and when the project gets underway. Next slide, please. So the first way that the estimator put this together was by building. And on the left, you see I listed again a reminder of some of the major themes that we saw throughout the campus, some typical things. And so you can see on this chart, it starts with building A. And if you read across it, it gives the gross square footage of the building. These are all these are approximate. They're taken from drawings, but we didn't go out and they're not surveyed. And then the cost per square foot, the total cost of the building, for instance, at building A is $2 million, and then that's 7.5% of the overall total. And if you go down, you can read across the building B, the library, the building C and D, additional classroom buildings, and so on. And then at the bottom is a number for the site work, which is mostly our civil engineer, and that's primarily improving accessibility, adding handrails at ramps where they don't exist or where they're where the code has changed and they need to be updated, and some paving repairs. Then so that brings the total construction cost to $26 million, almost $27 million. Then we add 30% for soft costs, which are those things like permits and inspectors, etc., to a total of $34.9, almost $35 million. So next slide. So another way of looking at this, we wanted to look at this another way so we broke this out by those same, by the major themes that we found here. Accessibility in this case is mixed in throughout wherever that item would fall, like if it's a drinking fountain, it would fall under the plumbing category. So this way you can see building A, the estimate for replacing the roofing, the electrical systems, which is again, not the lighting, but the power, telecom, and AV systems. The heating and HVAC, fire protection, and plumbing all grouped together. Then the exteriors, which was what you saw, mostly the exterior finish repairs, and then interiors were, again, the mostly finish repairs, some and some accessibility upgrades. And then the miscellaneous is things that didn't really fit into any category. Like at the bottom, I listed some of them, which would be some of the demolition you have to do. We put in a hazmat allowance, which is just an allowance in case hazardous materials are found, so that allows for the removal of those or mitigation of those. And then the site, so we come to 26 million, and then again, the site work is the same, and then the estimate total is the same, and then so the project cost is the same. It's just another way of looking at the numbers. So that, I'm going to turn it over again to Mark on the next slide.
Thank you, Lyanne. I know that was a lot, and we wanted to remind you that as we did at the elementary schools, this is sort of the Reader's Digest version of a much larger report that provides in a great deal of detail, sort of building by building, the things that were found. And I also recognize that this is a large number, and it is, you know, at the risk of repeating myself, not at all uncommon. You know, school of this age, you've done some good work on mechanical, on lighting. And we were able to take that into account. This is the opportunity to look at all things needed. And these are things we do over time. But I wanted to contextualize this. We've already got some information about the elementary schools, and thanks to this work, we're able to see Half Moon Bay High School. So the first part there just summarizes what we already know. Lyanne described well the $34.9 million at the high school. That's soup to nuts, everything that would need to be done. But also reminding us at Fairlawn View and El Granada, the master plan work that was done for those. That includes, of course, a great deal of building repair. In this case, a number of buildings that had to be demolished and replaced. This was back in June, and you can see the cost there. So it tells us that, including escalation to the future year of construction, this could be a $142.7 million plan for the 3 schools. So that's a really important piece of information for us to have that we didn't have before. Sort of where are we? What is it? Where do we want to be? And then, of course, our strategy, our task is to find the strategy to get there. So first off, what are our funds available? And my gratitude to Jesus and to Dr. McFetridge and to Jim, we were able to find the funds that are available today. And you can read these here from prior bonds, the Measure M and S, also some interest. So we're looking at about $90.7 million of funding that's available for these projects. However, there are a couple of items, and this we saw in June, both technology, furniture, and solar, as well as deferred maintenance on other school properties that could be as much as $7 million. So we're setting that aside. So out of that 90.7, 13.7 needs to be removed for the sake of seeing what's available for the Half Moon Bay High and then Fairlawn View and El Granada, giving us a total of $77 million, or just more than half of what we need. And candidly, this is really good news. This is far better than some districts we've worked with where the funds available are so far below that it almost seems overwhelming. But this is a significant chunk of what can be used to begin to do these projects. We can go to the next slide, which really leads us to what do we do from here? And of course, the most important thing to Lyanne and myself is we're very interested in sort of your thoughts, your reactions, things you're curious about, or things you'd like us to look at in a different way. But there's other steps that we can take, one of which is a lot's changed since June. The district's completed a demographic study, and we've seen that the demographics are different than when we did the master plan for El Granada and Fairlawn View, which is actually good news in the view of the size of those schools. So we know we can work on those very easily, and our plan is to come back to you, if you allow us, in February to show sort of the revised master plans for El Granada and Fairlawn View by right sizing them. And it will be, it won't, I don't want to fool ourselves. This will not solve the problem by any stretch, but it will make things better by removing a few classrooms because we've basically sized the school bigger than it needs to be. So I think right sizing Fairlawn View and El Granada and looking at what the cost savings are for that. So our plan is to come back to you on that. But also as part of our task is, now we know where we want to be. What are some other things that we can do to do the same thing in perhaps less expensive ways? And Lyanne and I have some thoughts about that. So we sort of want to look at kind of obvious and maybe even somewhat out of the box ideas for reducing the cost at those school sites, but not sacrificing the educational program first and foremost, and what needs to be done to bring those buildings up to current code and 21st century schools. That's part of what we do. So we'd like to do that. And I think even going so far as just to look at options, and that's my job, is to provide you with options of what would happen to work closer within the budget by consolidation. So we'll look at that as an option as well. So just think of these as more pieces of information to help you be able to make provide some direction on your priorities. So we see not only working with you as the board, but even with your permission, working with the school sites and letting them be a partner with us. I don't want to be the one to make those decisions. I want to provide the options to the school site, have them be involved in sort of how we can find better ways to do the same things less expensively. Once we're sort of completed with this task, we're left with sort of what we call an implementation plan. It identifies a couple, 3 phases at each of the schools or at a couple of the schools. And as Dr. McFetridge pointed out, there are other sources of funding that we'll be looking at. Not just the state, which we fully expect in 2022 to not only be on the ballot, but we'll pass this time. There's also other sources of savings by design, and there's money from the California Energy Commission that's recently come available. So we'll look for other sources of funding to pay for this. And then lastly, once the project list is established and we can do what everybody wants is start on the first project so we can complete them, we'll continue to look for savings while we're designing as part of our obligation too. How can we work through our design and find less expensive ways to do these buildings? We'll know a lot more when we're designing, and some of the contingencies we've thrown in may not be needed anymore because they've been resolved. Next slide. So with that, we are delighted to take any comments or questions that you have. And I appreciate your patience. I know this was a lot.
Thank you for all that hard work and all that information, and for consolidating it as well and making it friendly to read for people who are not very good with numbers and math and all that. So thank you. And yes, that is a lot. But before we open for discussion, I know we still have half an hour before 10 o'clock. Can I make a motion to go beyond 10 o'clock?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Kim, you're unmuted. Would you like to speak?
Right, we need to go
Sorry, Lizette, we need to do a roll call.
Roll call.
Yeah, we need
Yes.
Can you do roll call, Rosie?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Lizette,
Aye.
Mary Beth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Just to confirm, we're doing roll call for,
Porfio, to pass 10.
oh, to pass till 10. Okay, sorry, that makes sense. Aye, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline,
Aye.
thank you. 5 + 1, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I promise I'll get it together by the end of the year. Thank you. I'm gonna open it up for discussion now. Anybody? Kim, you're
So,
unmuted.
thank you for the presentation and all of the estimates. And I understand they're just that, they're estimates. And I do understand, I took away that when you looked at by building, this is what it takes for roofing and electrical, et cetera. I will say I was amused that our science and art building had the highest number on it when that's our newest building. So that wasn't lost on me.
It is a larger building too. I noticed, I was looking at that as well.
But again, it's that fine tuning of where are the needs. You know, if
Right.
you've got other buildings that are 30 years older,
Yes.
my guess is there's a lot more maintenance and bringing up to date needed on other buildings than that building.
And that's an excellent example of how one prioritizes. Like it's a very reasonable thing to say, let's set those to the next phase. So that's a great first idea.
So I just had a follow-up question. You mentioned the idea of other funding, in particular, like the state energy funds or other kinds of things, especially if we're doing the solar and we're doing energy efficiency. And I know that, and maybe this is a little bit to Jim Crawford if he's here, and to Sean, but I know that we've signed contracts with organizations to help us find some of that energy. I remember us talking about it a year ago with Prop 35, I think, under those funding. I think that's the right proposition. I was just wondering if there's any actual tangible, we really feel like we're going to get some money on this. Maybe it's too soon to know, but I just kind of wanted a little bit more information on some of that. So
Jim can speak to this. He has so much more experience in this than I do.
Yeah, currently there's not there's a grant we applied for, but we weren't able to receive. There's some money out there now for some smaller items in the few thousands of dollars. We're expecting now with the new president, the governor, both big on energy. We're going to see some grants coming through in the next couple of years on it. But unfortunately, at the moment, it needs some time to develop and come up through the system. So there's nothing at this point in time, but we can constantly look. The district will be coming up for state bond funding in about 3 years. So that can play in as we're developing the long-term picture out, and that'll be in the millions of dollars. A lot of the district sites were renovated around 1999, the end of the 90s. There was a lot of state grants applied for in this district. And 25 years later, you can reapply again. So around 2024, 2025, the district will be up again for a lot of state bond money. So we'll start working towards that and trying to get in line. There's a long line of districts that's been in line for years and years. So if we do get awarded the money, it could be quite a ways down the road until they actually sell the bonds and send the funds to the district on it. But I'm sure there'll be more state energy projects and federal energy project funds coming available, and we'll try to apply for those along the way.
Thank you, Jim.
Just to dovetail a little bit on that, I completely concur with Jim that the best source of funds will likely be the state bond. It is very good, these energy programs that come along, they don't tend to be the amounts of money that we'd see from the state bond, but it is remarkable. We do an energy retrofit across the site. There's AB 841 right now that's out. It could lead to funding a big portion of what would have come from the bond money that will release other funds for more of the master plan. But the state funds are our best opportunity, state bond.
Just a real quick follow-up on that. Is there ever any opportunity for private partnerships? Are there ever any development agencies that want to do some kind of model thing? Is that ever happen? Or nonprofits that have certain building techniques that are environmental that they want to try and are willing to put some matching funds into? Are there other pools out there for that?
There is, but they're more rare. I've worked on projects with redevelopment agencies. Of course, there's no redevelopment agencies anymore. I've done it with HUD grants, and there's some interrelated school projects I've done. The state bond sometimes have some specialized grants now and then that you can apply for. So there are occasionally there are, and we'll keep a lookout for those on it. And you have to move very, very quick to get on those, because usually it's not a lot of money, and the first 20 districts that apply get the money, and everybody else is out of the picture on that. So, but we'll keep an eye along the way for that as well.
On a related note of that, there's other partnerships too that you as board members and the community knows better. Occasionally there's partnership opportunities with the city. In my experience, those don't happen often, but we've completed the theater and a aquatic center and a joint use library once. So occasionally there's opportunities, and even rarer opportunities. I have seen community members make contributions to public school projects, and that's the less likely. But there are opportunities for city and county partnerships that may offset some of these expenses. Just a thought.
Well, thank you for a great analysis and presentation as always. Thank you very much also for the strategic thinking and kind of recommending to us a process of prioritization, kind of parallel pathing with, actively looking for cost-cutting approaches and increased revenue approaches. Keep our fingers crossed about litigation, keep our fingers crossed about the state bonds, and focusing on that is helpful as far as kind of the order of magnitude we should be talking about as far as like pots of money that will help us is the millions, so that's for sure, to kind of have that one thing that's maybe a couple of little other things here and there is helpful. So, and the approach that you outline in your next steps in terms of kind of looking at alternatives for the elementary schools, having some better sense of where, for me, the prioritization will be around safety as well. And there's definitely a lot we could do in terms of cosmetics, but safety and I don't know what to call it, but it's kind of like reliability, and like we should have high-speed reliable internet in every room. We should have power outlets conveniently located in every room. And I know buildings built before 1970 didn't have in mind the amount of electronics that we were using today. So as far as in future conversations to have some more insights into your perspectives, I see the numbers and it caught my eye too. And I was quickly calculating out of my curiosity how much square footage do we have at the high school? And it looks like about 100,000 square feet, which puts that 35 million a little bit more into perspective relative to the normal house we're used to thinking about those numbers. So for future conversations, when we get into prioritization, having some sense of where there are safety issues or where there are major issues of, I don't want to, convenience maybe not the right word, but efficiency, practicality, like, I think you guys know what I mean, like power where you need power, internet where you need internet, that kind of thing, I think would be really helpful. But I think the next steps that you outlined are a good path to go.
I have a few questions. At one point, Mark, you said the high school doesn't need to be demolished like your other schools. Is the high school in significantly better shape than our elementary, Farallon and El Granada, that need help?
For the way the school is being used, yes. You know, some of the reasons that we took some buildings down because they were going to be repurposed in ways that they just couldn't function. Or an example of some of the multi-use rooms, they were just too small. So I will say that, you know, if I could use the expression, that there's really good bones in the high school. Now, that may change if there's an educational program change. And, you know, let's say there's an ag program that really doesn't function in the building it wants to go in, then it would be less expensive to tear it down. But we didn't find that in just doing the facility assessments. There's actually pretty good bones in those buildings.
And say you were building it from scratch, would you be changing the configuration of the rooms? I'm curious if we end up upgrading it, if it's still like, you know, outdated, even though it's not falling apart.
So I think I can answer that sort of two ways. No, I would do it differently, of course. I mean, I think if we were designing that building, the school knew, there would probably be some things we would do differently. But I will tell you that a well-modernized school building, even one that's older, that has, and I thought that was really well said by Sophia, the issues of providing good technology. We would look at increasing daylight and providing perhaps connections between classrooms depending on the interest of the teacher, so we can improve the way the teachers work in it. And then all those improved finishes and marker boards that actually work and rooms that actually darken and windows that actually open. It's phenomenal how much that transforms a school. And then depending on our opportunity to find furniture, nothing transforms a classroom better than furniture. And so if we're able to dovetail that with furniture, I would never feel like you sold yourself short by kind of dressing it up, but it really didn't work. I don't feel that way about those classrooms. I really feel like there's a lot we could do about them. But yes, if I was designing it new, there's probably things we would do differently, you know, than schools were built back in those days.
That's good. So at least we're not shortchanging ourselves.
No, or throwing good money after bad. I think Lion and I both would be pretty quick to say that. It was tough at the elementary schools because a lot of the buildings were sort of at the tipping point of, well, we could save them. And after a while, it just felt like that was good money after bad.
It's also portable. The high school has very few portable classrooms.
That's a good point.
Very few. You know, so the classrooms all were in a very basic, mostly in a very basic layout that I feel lends itself to, they are fairly adaptable, like for future. Like you could open them up to each other or open them up more to the outside.
Yep.
Or more a connection with the outdoors without having to tear it down.
Okay, thank you for that. That answers that question. I also had a question about the funding number that we saw, that our total funding that we have. That is the number we have now, right? We still have more bonds that will be sold, or is that the whole thing?
That is the whole thing.
That's the whole thing, not including, okay. Darn it.
But that would have been nice.
Thought maybe there's a little bit more on the edge there.
I was looking for the shoebox of money under the business manager's desk, but no luck.
Yeah. I know we're basically talking about the high school right now, but you know, we are bringing El Granada and Farallon View into the conversation. I wonder if you have an opinion on which of those schools seems to be worse off than the other, or is that for another day? that's, I guess, next time when we're going to talk about elementaries.
We will talk about elementaries next time. I think that's a question to ask. I don't know, Lion, how would you answer that? I mean, I have kind of pluses and minuses for both, or do we just save this for next time?
There's pluses and minuses for both, and I would like jokingly going to say it depends which one your child goes to. No, I'm not. They both have, they have, each of them has pluses and minuses. They're both fabulous, views, obviously, but I don't want to say, I don't know.
No, that's fine.
Maybe we can look at the numbers. You could actually look at the numbers and the reports and see how many, what we did at each one, and that, that
that's
helps.
Fine. That's fine.
I mean, current estimates have Fairlawn View 5 million higher than El Granada.
Yeah. And there's less, the enrollment is lower there. So if you go by, I guess cost per projected enrollment.
And really quick, the estimates of those elementary schools, will that be higher or the same after you do more like right sizing of the school per student, because of enrollment?
Fortunately, they'll go down. We were a little conservative in our classroom counts, and that's good. And when we saw the most recent enrollment projections, we realized in some cases we had a couple more or more classrooms than we needed. We don't see reducing the size of the multi-use rooms or the offices. They'll really be the same size, or even the libraries, but we certainly can make the number of classrooms smaller. And again, Lion and I have a couple of tricks up our sleeve. We're going to share with you some other things we think we might be able to create the same effects less expensively. So we'll bring those to you hopefully in February.
I look forward to seeing what comes in February, definitely. Knowing that we do have a real estate committee and we're kind of lagging behind our assessments in terms of what you're doing. Eventually it may dovetail, but I'm just going to name it in case it influences how you evaluate El Granada and Fairlawn View. And that would be, it may not be an all or nothing, meaning 2 separate sites or all combined. But, would we look at thinking out of the box and restructuring, some grades at one school or another, or you consolidate to some degree, but then have other district offices or functions on one of the campuses that maybe doesn't require as many classrooms. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I'm just trying to noodle with what that thinking is, and we'll look at future assessments. But you might stick that in the back of your head if there's some aha in doing your assessment that would, thinking about feasibility or something that we hadn't even thought of.
I appreciate you saying that. You might recall we did a very similar study for the Pacifica schools many years ago. It was a very complex one that included opening some closed school and closing some open ones and selling some excess sites. But you're quite right. There was a large vision looked at were there grade level configurations that created some efficiencies. And in this case, moving some schools together. And it was remarkable the cost efficiencies that provided as well for Pacifica. So similar sort of circumstances, a little bigger problems they had, but similar sort of circumstances. So yes, we will think about that as well.
I have another question about the high school. If we are talking about prioritizing projects, would you say of that 35 million, half it's really bad and we should do right away, or no, it's all terrible and you should? Do you have any opinion on that?
I do, and I actually don't think you're far off from your guess. Half to a little more than a half are things, we'll prioritize, just as was said earlier, by things that directly affect students that we need to fix, things that are safety issues and things that are code issues. It's about half. I mean, if our solution to this is find the what you can do for half, as long as we can do the things that keep the buildings warm, safe, and dry, and deal with 21st century technology. We could do a great deal to transform those classrooms with that amount of money. And then the next time around, the things, you know, we're architects, we love the way things look, but those things can be done later. You know, we would love to replace the carpets and replace some cabinets, but if we could just spend half and deal with some of the worst problems. And as was just pointed out, maybe just skip over some of the newer buildings this time around, except make sure they have good technology. I really believe there's an answer in there. And then some efficiencies at the elementary school, and then we sort of phase those as well. We're not going to do them all at once. That's going to get us where we need to. We know we're not going to paint ourselves in a corner, but do the most important stuff first. So maybe Lyanne and I will take another look at, you know, like what would half look like, and could we cover some of the biggest safety and 21st century classroom needs?
That's one of the reasons we looked at it with the categories and the buildings, so you could see it that way. Like, you know, you could decide the library is fine, we're not going to touch the library, or you could decide, you know, these things, whatever, this thing doesn't matter as much as the as these other things, like maybe even the exterior finishes don't matter as much as, because they're cosmetic potentially, as the things that affect the kids.
Yeah, or the roofing, because we have leaking problems. So I really support this this approach. And both of you have talked in different ways. The focus being things that are around student safety, around, you know, keeping things warm, safe, and dry, and making sure our students have access to good Wi-Fi, power their classrooms, more than one outlet per classrooms, you know, those sorts of things.
And you're probably already planning on doing this, but then it also makes sense to, when you come back with the elementary schools and the right sizing, but also, if I remember right, I don't remember all the numbers exactly off the top of my head, they were kind of like dream schools. Like if we could do everything we wanted to do with a multi-purpose room and all these other things, but maybe have a similar breakdown for the elementary schools. So if we're looking at those in terms of how to make them better. I mean, in some cases, like you said, we might still have to demolish the portables, but we maybe don't need X or Y. So it might be good to have that breakdown as well. And maybe we can, I don't know if next time is going to be when we compare those or try and pull it together. Maybe that's a further meeting, but that would be useful as well.
I agree, and I think we can do that. I'd like to reframe that slightly. I really appreciate that perspective, but I'd like to reframe it, instead of the dream, as think of it as a roadmap of where we want to be. And we were careful not to do, and I'll use as an example that, you know, nobody asked for, nor would we have done, a 300-seat theater at each school. So these were, I thought, very responsible. The teachers were thoughtful about what was right and what was needed. Never once did I get a sense where things were asked for that really were more dreamy. But I completely agree. We have to think of these as where we want to go. And I can't figure out how I'm going to get there till I know where I'm going. Now you're asking us, can we back up and figure out what are the first steps to get there? So I'd like to not think of them as things we won't do eventually, but I'm an eternal optimist. You have to be an architect. You know, we will get there, but let's first figure out what the most important things to do to get there. So I very much support that approach.
I'm an eternal optimist too. So when I say dreams, I mean the things that we can get to.
Great, I'm right there with you then. and I had a good sense of what you meant. We sometimes will hear from community members what they might say, you know, this is just a dream school. This is the Taj Mahal. This is more we need. It's like, no. And now, in all honesty, your staff, your principals, very, very realistic in their wishes. In fact, Lyanne and I a couple of times said, you know, we could do a little more here. You know, the classrooms don't look exactly the same. You know, so I like to think of it as, yeah, that's where we want to get there and how we're going to do it. Wonderful.
I just have a comment for my board members. I don't know. I feel antsy to get started on something. I feel like construction costs are going up every year. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, or if you think there might be a different outlook. I know I've heard, you know, the cost of wood is really high right now because of COVID and they're having problems getting it. But I just assume construction costs are going to go up every year. So I feel antsy, like I want to get going on things. And I feel like the high school is a very important school in our district. So that being what we're talking about, I feel strongly about making some of these changes at the high school and getting it up to snuff. You know, there is no other choice of a high school in our district, and it is kind of the crowning jewel. So I'm antsy to get going, and I think we need to do some work at the high school, and I'm curious what others of you may think.
I think it's kind of a yes and, you know, we need to queue up the elementary projects because they haven't been touched. And in reality, you know, yes, it's been there for a while now. And so now we're used to seeing that beautiful science and art building. But those are a lot of really, you know, well-maintained classrooms right now. And so
I agree. I
it
want to
might be that you pick, I would ask Mr. Nazar, Mr. Boysen, what the worst of the, you know, literally have the site do a priority on what are the worst buildings, what needs the most attention. It may be that, you know, all but building K roofs are leaking and we got to deal with the roofs first. And then one of the other buildings that's in the worst condition. You know, again, that because this was kind of this was more of a peanut butter estimate. We need to fine tune what those priorities would be. And Mark may very well have, you know, a sense of what the priorities are, having walked the campus and the buildings. But
Kim, I totally agree with you. I want to get going on the elementary schools too. So I don't mean to be saying that. I just know we're talking about high school tonight, and I want to say that. I think it's important, but I'm antsy to get going on all of them. Get it moving. So
but yeah, it's like, again, having the feedback on what our site administrators see as the biggest need would be a good input here.
Yeah. Well, and also it just takes so long to do. So we keep going because I know they take forever. So anyway, that's my.
It sounds like we'll be in really good shape with the next step being come back with like kind of a more kind of prioritized or list of options for the elementary schools. I think that's an important next step. This is a huge first step in terms of the high school. You know, hopefully Cunha will last us for a while. Hatch is obviously in great shape. Kings Mountain sounds like it's in pretty good shape. Pilarcitos is new. So like these being our three priorities, hopefully for the next 10 to 15 to maybe 20 years, makes sense that we focus on them right now. So I think that's a really great next step to come back next month with kind of the more concrete ideas around our alternatives for the elementary schools. And I don't know if it'll be too soon to come next month, but pretty soon after that with like, if we were to go, you know, it's qualitatively, you say half of that's 35, which is around 17, what would that look like? And what would it leave on the table for later? And I also like, Mark, how you outlined, it's not like it's never going to happen. It's just, you know, you do things in a way that you say, this is our first step, is that first 17 million. And then we have our map, our roadmap for over the, you know, we would get some money from litigation, we get some money from a state bond. We kind of have our wish list ready to go, and it makes things faster, which is really great.
Yep.
But this is the hard work.
It is.
I have one more question. They keep coming up. If we did do it in phases, would it end up costing us more because we're having to kind of fix that? Would it end up costing more and it would be cheaper if we just did the whole thing?
It's a really good question. The answer is yes. And if you think about it, the contractors are demobilizing, remobilizing, having the same subs come. I'm not suggesting this is an answer. It's you. If you worked on one site, did everything, that's the least expensive way to do it. You're paying for least escalated cost, not remobilizing. On the other hand, there's also just a limitation of how much you can do on a school at a time because we have students there. It's too bad we weren't building this starting fall of 2020.
Yeah.
So there's a limitation of what we can do. It is the reality of construction. So we'll try to do the things, do as much as we can, but you are right. When we're doing in phases, you are paying a higher cost for escalation and for remobilizations.
I don't like that.
Yeah. If
it's the 77 million to the table, Mary Beth.
What'd you say, Kim?
I said to bring 77 million to the table.
We'll settle for 60. We can make that work.
There's a slight reprieve this year. Escalation this year has not been as high as expected, but you know, I don't know when that won't be permanent.
And when you say it's going to cost more, do you mean 3 million more? I mean, what is it? Do you have a rough estimate of that?
I'll give it to you in percentages and we can sort of do it on a yearly basis. Lana brought up a really good point. All of our numbers for escalation are out the window right now. This is the same as what happened in 2009. We were opening bids 20%, 30% less. We just opened bids now that are 25% less than our estimates that were done 6 months ago. But this will be short-lived. This won't, I mean, I don't know. I certainly don't have a crystal ball any better than anybody else. But the numbers we use, we say usually anywhere from 3 to 5% is escalation. So every year that we add to a project, if it's a $1 million project, you're adding another 5% to that every year that you wait. I don't know what escalation will be like when we finally get around to starting construction, because your point's well taken. It's a year of planning and DSA approval and a little more than that before we get started. The economy may still be faltered and we may not have as much construction. So cost may be less than we're saying. I'm reluctant for any of us to depend on that. But it is true that every year, normally we would say, you know, in the 3 to 5% range, we would be adding every year we delay a project starting.
Okay, so that's delay start. And then any estimate on increased cost if we did it in parts? You know,
yeah, no, and that's really difficult to estimate because it is as much to do with escalation because the parts you're doing in the future as it is mobilizing, remobilizing. It's a little more tough. And then I have to balance that.
So on top of that 5%,
yes,
there would be the mobilizing and.
But a little optimism is we're also doing what we can to avoid temporary housing. The more we try to do in a phase, the more we need temporary housing. And I loathe temporary housing. It's money that I can't put in a classroom. So. Yeah, exactly. And it's not cheap.
Okay, thank you.
So it depends.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Thank you very much, and thank you for staying and giving us all this information that is a lot. Thank you. And now we will move on. Am I doing this right?
Yes, and Mark, Lyanne, Lisa, we will see you at the next meeting.
Look forward to that. Thank you so much for having us tonight.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks.
So now we move to item E, Measure M, Facility Bond, Citizens Oversight Committee, and the annual report. Sean?
I'm gonna let Chief Business Officer Mr. Contreras take this up. And I see on the screen a pillar of the community, a man I greatly respect, and I say that with all sincerity.
Thank you.
Mr. Olifano, Mike Olifano, who has given so much to this community and to this district. And so, Jesus, Mike, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Most certainly, Mr. Olifano has been working and leading the Oversight Committee, and he is responsible, he has picked up the responsibility of making sure that a group of citizens who are part of the committee look at the purposes and expenditures of the bond. And I will let Mr. Olifano address the board with the work that they have done throughout this year. And Mr. Olifano.
Thank you very much. So I miss all of you, seeing you both in person, and you know, hope to see you guys soon in person when we get through all this. So President Cortez, the rest of our elected school board members, Superintendent McFetridge, thank you for the nice words. And then CUSD staff and community members attending the meeting online here. I'm currently the chair of the Measure M and the Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee. And I've been involved in these committees and partial tax measures since 2010. Freya was there and a few others, but Measure E, then the Measure B, and now Measure the construction bonds for S and now M. So this is a pretty straightforward report. It kind of builds on the previous year's reports. There's nothing out of the ordinary this year that the committee has questioned or looked into. As you know, we meet 4 times a year. We discuss quite a bit of, we have quite a bit of discussion based on, what our duties are, what's under our purview, what are the concerns of the community, because we do find that people come to us in the community and ask us questions, even though those questions might not be the duty of our positions. It would be school board members instead of us, or the CUSD staff or the administration. So I'll go over a couple of those things that we discuss, and then I'll kind of open it up to some questions if you guys have any. So first things first, I'm going to need some help. We lost 3 committee members. I've accepted the resignations from Diane Broslin, Abe Jimenez, and Naomi Patridge. So first off, Diane Broslin is a phenomenal community member. She has been on this committee for several years. I sat on the CEF board with her for many years. She's a phenomenal lady, has been continuously giving back to the community, and she's one of those people I look up to. So she has done a tremendous amount of work, asked some of those toughest questions in the room, and she's done a great job keeping notes and being secretary. So I can't thank her enough, and we'll do something nice to recognize her. Abe has been with us for a couple of years. He's moving to the other side of the hill, so I accepted his resignation letter. I'll be getting back to him and letting him know how much we thank him for his time and his commitment to his community and his school district. And I'm sorry to see him go, because he was a nice new face to see on a volunteer committee like this. And then lastly is Naomi. I kind of consider her like a second mother. She's a phenomenal lady. She's been mayor I don't know how many times. She is somebody I go to for advice, and I can't say enough about her. We are lucky in this community to have her. So she resigned. She's put, I don't know how many decades of time into the city council. She's been on numerous countywide committees, and we're going to miss her. She's got a huge wealth of knowledge, and she really does help us put in perspective some of the things we need to do, but also some history as to where we are today because of these prior events in history. So I can't thank all 3 of them enough, and it's going to be a lot different without them. So I need the school board's help and the administration's help. We need to find 3 new members. So just FYI, Naomi sat as the active board member on a bona fide taxpayer association. And then the at-large members were Diane Broslin and Abe Jimenez. So they can be people that don't necessarily fill some of the required positions, which is a local business community organization, a parent of an enrolled student, and then a parent of an enrolled student and active in a parent group, which was the position I had. Lisa Zanette had the previous one, and then Charmian had the one to be ahead of that. So that being said, we're open to finding 3 or 4 more solid, individuals that would be willing to help us out on this committee. So because we have so many openings, and some of us have done this for a long time, I think it's going to be very important to find people that want to help out on this committee. So I'm going to move on to the actual committee report. It's in front of you guys there, and a couple of the items that we discussed after we go over this that I wanted to bring up was the duties of a committee member, and it was difficult to sometimes run the meeting because we had a lot of input and a lot of concern over when's Fairlawn View going to get done, when is El Granada going to get done, and we had to bring that discussion around and saying that's not our job. Our job is to make sure that the school board spends the dollars per the ballot language, and our job is to make sure that that happens. So I must tell you, a lot of discussion. I'll just give it to you, from what I hear in these meetings, that it's tough to get them away from that. Is the 2 biggest questions: when are they going to do El Granada? When are they going to do Fairlawn View? So when I hear discussions in the previous agenda item of the high school and how much money we have left, I think the community is going to have some questions if we don't do something with those two schools. That was our discussions. So leaving that and telling everybody to not talk about that and talk about what our job is, we're there to discuss and oversee the Measure M dollars, which was $99 million, and the S dollars, which was $81 million. And this year we had some tough questions for the auditor, and the report came out, I thought, very well. A couple of the questions we had for the auditors were, what's the best practices for changing auditors and changing, having a healthy cycle so we don't have the same comfortable auditor doing the same auditing every year. Typical in the industry is 5 years. And we've actually exceeded that. So that's good. Not requesting it, but it's actually been done. So we've had several people within an organization that are partners that have switched throughout the years. And I can attest to that because I've been on this committee for a long time. So we've had new people quite often. So that was one of the questions that we brought up. One of the other questions we had was questions about purchasing of equipment and vehicles for the bond for construction, and how do those dollars commingle with vehicles that are left over after the bond, the construction's done. And one of the questions one of the board members had was, we have 5 new utility trucks recently bought from Ford, and how do we go about figuring out if the bond's going to pay for all or some of those? And we got some great discussion, and Jim has been phenomenal, Crawford, in helping us understand that. We were also all happy to see that you spent those dollars here in the community at James Ford. So that was pretty neat. We were all happy about that. One of the other tougher questions we had was, in the previous years, the average percentage of the expenditures inspected dropped. So in previous years, we saw numbers in the 70s, 80s percents, and this year was 69%. And we all were concerned about that because we all wanted to know why, in maybe our eyes or the community's eyes, are you doing less? And the answer was, they're not. And they went through a long discussion about the amount of records that they do inspect. And just because the percentage or the amount they do in previous years doesn't mean that they're not looking through all the records. So that was some of our concerns, mostly because if a community member were to read the report and see in previous years we were in the 70s and the 80%, why is it now 69%? Does that mean something's wrong? Does it mean that we don't have enough money to pay the auditor? Things like that. A lot of them are perception issues that we might have to explain in the future, and we'd rather not have to do that. So let's see, those are pretty much the questions we had. All the numbers inked out. I wouldn't be able to do this without my committee members. And the auditor did a great job explaining and answering our questions on the fly. Normally you would ask these questions ahead of time, present them to the auditor, and then have a discussion at the meeting. We've done that in the past, and it works well, it doesn't work well. This time, the auditor, it was a lot of new people on the committee, so it was the more comfortable thing to do was ask them in front of the auditor. And they did a fine job answering the questions, clarifying issues that we had, and completing our work for the year. A couple of things I wanted to put out there. Jim Crawford has been phenomenal. Jesus has been phenomenal. The biggest issue we've had is transition. And it's really been tough because we used to have Crystal in there, and every once in a while Jane would be in there, and there's obviously been some change. So it's been a little tough on the committee member side of things to run with the punches, I say, but I think we've done a good job, and we've I think represented the community well in this oversight position, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for staying on. I know you're a father and a busy man, so I appreciate your time and all your work, and thank you for just updating us. And I also want to thank the 3 members who have served and are now resigning for their own personal reasons. But like you said, Naomi and other people who've been and dedicated so much time and energy and knowledge, and they've done it just for the improvement and the better of our community and our kids. So, and thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
This was, I can only imagine how much work this is, and I have no words. So thank you for everything. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And by the way, you're running a great meeting.
I'll get it right, but
it takes time, but we've all been there. And let me tell you, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
All right, thank you. I have a year,
Absolutely.
so I'll do it by the end of the year for sure.
I'm sure you will.
Anybody? I'm gonna open it up for discussion. Mary Beth?
I was just going to say, I mean, it really seems like you are all doing your due diligence, and I appreciate that. I want that behind us, checking and double checking and triple checking and questioning. So I really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Absolutely. Least I could do.
I'll just add and say what they said times 10, and just really, truly, Mike, we're lucky to have you in our community, and we're lucky to have you in this role. Just your diligence, your leadership, your ability to keep the committee on track when I know that's not an easy thing to do is, I think, leagues about your competence in this space, and with regards to kind of civic duty that are, I think, you're exemplifying really how our community members should be participating. Ideally, just taking the hard stuff, right? Like, this is not, again, not an easy job, not a particularly glamorous job,
no.
Right? But it's got to be done, and it's so important because it's like literally tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars that can be used well or not well, or probably somewhere in between. And your diligence in making sure that that's happening is so very much appreciated, as well as all the committee members, those that are departing and those that continue to serve. I'm so appreciative, and appreciate the report, and appreciate you guys spearheading that effort.
Well, one thing I do want to add is your staff is phenomenal. I know we've had some attrition and some changes, but I can't say enough for our superintendent. He's been easy to get a hold of. He is all ears, and if he doesn't have an answer, he finds out the answer and he gets back to you. And you don't find that these days very often. So lucky to have him. The staff has been phenomenal, and we're real lucky to not just have great staff, but I will say we're lucky to have board members. All of you have been doing a great job, and so much of what you do doesn't get appreciated as much in the community, because you just don't see these late nights at 10:15, doing the business of the school and the community. So again, I could go on for days, but thank you.
Well, thank you to those folks too here. I see we have 16 strong people still sitting in there, hopefully paying attention. If you haven't fallen asleep yet, thank you, folks, for being here. Because I think just, and that's something I've been pleased, and I can say is a silver lining of the pandemic has been the fact that we've kind of got, catapulted into the online world, and we're like YouTubers now, I guess, because we're streaming live. I feel pretty cool about that. My teenagers don't think so, but just the fact that we're doing that now, and we can have people engage from the comfort of their homes, and when I get an eyelash in my eye, I can run to the bathroom and wash it out. I think is really cool. So thank you for folks that are still hanging on.
I can't see that, so it's pretty neat to have those people still, connected. I must say I did doze off for a second, but I'm back. So, but anyways, I digress.
I just wanted to reiterate the appreciation from the rest of the board. I think it's kind of already been said, but thank you so much for your role here. And of course, thank you for the years and the effort that you've done on the different campaigns that have also gotten us to this point where we've had this money to spend. So as you said, Measure E, Measure B, Measure I, Measure S, and Measure M, and you've been a
Oh,
pivotal
gosh.
part of all of that. And so I just want to, from my heart say thank you so much, because the work that was done there to contribute to this community in terms of the bond money, but also that parcel tax money every year has just been incredible. So as I'm thanking you, I also always like to take that opportunity of again thanking the community for their
Yes.
support and what they've done. And I know that you feel the same way, just that we've got an amazing community that they can reach out and support us in that way over these years. So
No,
I
it's
really
all about
appreciate that.
it's the community. This is what it's all about. And I remember banging on doors and asking people for these votes, and they said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "I will be here as long as they'll let me be on here to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do with these dollars." So, you know what? It's been a great run, and I'll continue to stay as long as you guys will let me. But I do need some help. So I have a few people that'll probably apply. But that being said, it's all about the community, and that's what I'm all about.
I don't think I'm allowed to do it. Sorry, Mike. Otherwise, I volunteer.
Yeah.
You made it sound quite
You get
fun.
a pass. You get a pass.
And also just thank you to the departing members and also to the other members of the committee. So again, express our appreciation to them.
Absolutely. I'll pass that on.
Yeah. And so, and hello to your family. Hope everyone's doing well.
Thank you. Gianna just turned 13. We have a teenager now.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I've got two of them, and they were preschool and kindergarten when I first started on Measure E.
Isn't that crazy?
I've got a senior actually looking, she's applied.
I can't believe it.
I know.
It's exciting because I will tell you, this school district's awesome. And, she's a straight A student and is doing great. And I'll tell you, the teachers in this district are phenomenal. The staff is phenomenal. So we're very fortunate. And I can't say enough about our situation. As bad as it is pandemic wise, everybody's doing a great job, and it shows in my kids' grades. So that's great.
Great.
I just want to add
thank you again.
And so just a point of procedure, do applicants come to you on the committee or through the district?
Through the district. They're appointed and approved by the school board, which is you. And all I can really do is, suggest and entice and, ask them to come apply and show interest, and they'll come down to the school district, the DO and or apply online. And like I said, they have to meet one of those requirements besides an at-large position, which we do have at least one or two of those positions available. But we like to try to get them grouped into what, we're required to by, the California Constitution. So we'll figure out that part. But I would love to have a group of new people in here that that are willing to learn about this and understand how important this is.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But it is your job to say yes to them and accept the report. So
the application is open now. It's on our website. It's we've been disseminating it, and we asked about March 1st. So then we will bring those candidates and discuss it with Mike and get it all together.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mike, if I can include that in communications, upcoming communications with the community, I'm happy to do that and provide a link. And hopefully people will read my letter if it has your name in it.
We'll see. We'll see. But you guys are all doing a great job, and I can't thank you enough. And I'm proud to be part of what you guys are all about. So keep up the good work, you guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mike.
Thank
Have
you.
a great night. Don't
Yes.
stay too late.
We'll try not to. Right, ladies?
Yeah, Lizette, you're running a very efficient meeting.
You are.
So you're
Let's stay on track now. Stay on track. Okay, thank you, Mike, and have a good night. Rosie, will you lead us in a roll call? Am I doing this right?
No, we don't vote on this one. Just
We don't vote on this one.
Just kidding. Okay, we don't. Let's move on. Okay. This is now we are in F, approval of revision of the purchase of module portables classrooms at El Granada to house the CUSD early education program. And Dr. McFetrich, would you?
For context, we talked about this in previous board meetings. We got $1 million grant for inclusive early childhood education expanding. There's a great need for early childhood education in the community, affordable early childhood education. This would allow Los Listos to move to the Hatch portables. If you have that spot, it is more cost effective to buy those portables than to build new or to even scrape them and take them away and have nothing. However, and it's great because this is a grant that will give us special education, multilingual students, and combine all these different kinds of students. It was a great article actually recently in the Half Moon Bay Review that Leticia Batia, Dr. Batia, and Rosalva Segura, I asked them to speak to Sarah Wright at the Half Moon Bay Review because I knew they could speak to it even the best of all of us. But Mr. Contreras will talk today because unfortunately there's a revision because the vendor told us that they gave us the wrong specs. And so we're sorry to bring this back to you today.
So members of the board, when we asked Class Leasing to tell us how much we would need to pay them for the portables in the back of Hatch, they told us that they quoted us $274,000+. We brought them to the board. The board approved them for us to purchase those. Then they told us then on December 11, they told us that, oh, we made a mistake. We, the portables that we quoted you are the wrong size. Therefore, those portables that we have in there, which are theirs, are actually $407,000, which is $130,000 more than the board had approved for those portables. Dr. Batia and Rosalva that had brought to you the concept of serving our children and the preschool setting with all of those wonderful things that they talked to us about, the benefits of early intervention, the benefits of bilingualism for all of our kids, and then how those kids would be moving into Hatch. So that has been something that was brought to the board and a wonderful concept to do. So now this $130,000+ that would be paid out of the bond dollars would be the investment for us to put to pay to own those classrooms. I had mentioned to you before that there is a high cost for us to return those classrooms to the owners of those, and the annual cost of renting or leasing those is $111,000. So these classrooms are very appropriate for us to use for minimally 10 years plus of good use and bringing the services for our preschool children. And so we're bringing to you the notion of paying for those classrooms the extra $130,000. They're well worthy for us to have those classrooms, and we're bringing to you the notion and for your approval of paying those extra $130,000 for the classrooms that are in the back of Hatch. They would be serving our children for a good decade plus, and well taken care of. It could be even up into 20 years. So I am putting that before you for your consideration and authorization if you should desire to do so.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. And now we can open it up for discussion. Wow, I'm just gonna make my comment really quick. I was hoping that the mistake was that they would have been cheaper, but that's wishful thinking. So 130. And me personally, right now, my gut instinct or my gut reaction to this is if we weren't quite sure what the buildings were going to be used for, I'd hesitate. But the fact that they are already planned for, early child, more supporting early childhood education programs, and knowing that we desperately need that, especially, here in the coast, since, we're so isolated, and if you can't afford to provide that, it's definitely an issue. So that's my first gut feeling about this whole thing. And Sophia, you want to chime in? And oh, you are unmuted. Now you're muted.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be.
Anyone? Don't all speak at once.
Agree.
Okay. All right. So seeing that there's no major discussion, we will we vote, right? And then Rosie, can you get?
So yes, we need to do that roll call. Lisa?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Item passes 5+1, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Next item is the tentative agreement between Cabrillo Unified School District and the California Employees Association. Dr. McFetrich, would you like to talk about this?
Yes, I'd be delighted to talk about this. And if Rosie, if you would please bring up the one page that we have. Stiglin spoke to this. We had a very productive negotiation with them in December. Stig and I have spoken about how we think both in the CUTA agreement and in the CSEA agreement, this is a sign, a harbinger potentially of, yes, look, we're going to talk about salary, but we're going to talk about other things that we need to talk about for progress in the district, both for our employees and generally for the district's organizational health. And so in short, what you'll see in this tentative agreement is we focused on providing an offer and negotiating a Me Too, if you will, the same offer that we provided to CUTA, to CSEA, with a salary increase of 3% on schedule salary increase for the 2018-2019 fiscal year. And we did that, and also effective for this year, the 2020-21. So effective July 1, 2020, the beginning of this year, there would have been a 3% on the salary schedule. We'll work on retroactive payment. And then, did I get this wrong? No, and then effective July 1, 2020, there's a 3%. And there was one also effective July 1, 2019. So the work ahead is, I mean, this is the same deal, the same package. You know, when I came to the board and when the board authorized this, once we realized that we had more money because of the basic aid community funded status, we looked at the whole family. Everybody knows that I'm always going to talk about the whole family. I'm always going to talk about CUTA, CSEA, and unrepresented in management. That, I think, is fair to bring the whole family together. So I call that Me Too. Many people in the business call it Me Too. So effective July 1, 2019, CSEA would receive a 3% bump, a raise, and then effective July 1, 2020, the same. And so what we are also saying is that we will agree in the coming negotiations, when we start the new successor negotiations, to look at longevity increments to address compensation increases that have not been applied to longevity. That has not been applied for some time, and it's basically the idea that, hey, if you last this long in the organization, we pay you more for longevity pay to retain you. It's a goal of the district to retain our employees. You'll hear it from CUTA all the time. You're going to hear it from CSEA. It's our goal too. So we want to retain employees. And so we're going to look at that, and we agree to look at those longevity increments. to address compensation increases that haven't been applied in past years. And so we thought that was very forward thinking, and I appreciate CSEA saying, okay, let's do this deal now so we can tie this up with a bow and do the same thing that we did for CUTA, and let's identify the things that we're going to look forward in forward negotiations. And then we also said we would agree to discuss language addressing compensation parity among bargaining units, and this is the whole notion about, might there be language in the contract so that we sort of codify the Me Too. The Article 15 you'll see down there, that is statutory language that had to be changed to mark with the law, going from 45 days to 65 days, 60 days, excuse me. And then right above that, Rosie, if you scroll up just real quick, there was a health and welfare article, and that was also kind of just codifying that we no longer offer one kind of healthcare and we're offering another healthcare. So it was very convivial, very productive. Stig and his team, God, do I get this right? Kathy Gray, Diane Powley, Shane Medina, who am I forgetting? David Wood on Mark of CSEA. Gosh, I hope I'm not forgetting somebody, but it was a great meeting with them in December, and I thank them for this. And this is an information item. This is not for your approval. We will take this to San Mateo County Office of Education, do the Assembly Bill 1200, show them we can afford it, and then we will bring it back to you at a future meeting. CSEA will still need to vote and ratify it. We will get it approved by the county. When the county approves it, we'll bring it back as an AB 1200, like we're about to do for CUTA, to make that real, because we did it in concept before. So that's it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. It's an information item, no vote required.
Yeah, I was about to, I was about to do that. Any comments?
Is it getting written into the contract, the Me Too, the whole family thing, or?
The compensation parity thing that we will negotiate will be something we will negotiate as far as language to see if CSEA and the district have mutual interest in doing that and codifying that in the contract going forward. And we just thought it was important to say, look, let's fix what we can fix now. Let's deal with this now, and let's identify future work. Much like CUTA, you know, CUTA, bless them, when we sat at the table, they said, okay, let's take care of the salary piece. Let's take care of these other pieces. And then let's codify in our tentative agreement that we will be talking about the things that we need to talk about. And those included like the 6-period day versus 7-period day at Cunha, the impacts of extended day kindergarten, full day kindergarten. And I'm forgetting the last bit, but we're going to see that come up in a minute too.
Okay. Thank you. Moving along, next item is H, approval of AB 1200 for Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association.
Hey, I know that this was your work, but if you don't mind, I'll just like speak to it.
All right.
I mean, unless you want to do it.
Now go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Again, we've talked about this, and everybody knows that I'm a fast talker, and I'm just going to try to get this done, right? So we brought this to you before in concept. You authorized our negotiations. We came to a successful negotiations in November. Then we had to go back to the county to show them that we could afford it, because of course they've been proverbially in our back pocket for the last year and a half, saying you can't afford anything. So they wanted to make sure we could do it. Jesus, bless you, Jesus, worked on an Assembly Bill 1200 and filled that out to show them that we could afford it. And this basically is an approval of that, and basically it's the same thing. It's a 3% increase retroactive for last year and a 3% for this year. Once these Assembly Bill 1200, once you authorize this and codify this and make this like official, no longer just a presentation and concept, once you make this official, we did tell CUTA and agreed at the table that it might take until the spring to be able to start doing retroactive checks, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, basically it's a 3% last year, a 3% this year. You know, with the incremental, with the what's the word I'm looking for, Jesus? It winds up being over 6% because of
compounded.
So, and I just described to you some of the things that we talked about that. So again, I think we all sort of said kumbaya in the past as a board, but this is your chance to sort of like vote on it and make it real.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Go ahead, Kim.
Second?
I'll second.
All right. So since you're on screen, would you like to speak? Do you have a comment? And I'm going to open up for discussion.
I do not have any comments. Glad we're able to finish her off.
Yes. No comments? Oh, yeah. Okay. I agree. We are finally able to make this official and sign it off per se. All right. So do I have, oh, Rosie, will you do roll call vote for us?
Yes, we're going to be doing the roll call. Lizette,
Aye.
Mary Beth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Passes 5+1.
All right. Moving along, item I, approval of the revision schedule for a regular governing board meeting for the year 2021. Dr. McFetrich.
Thank you. In your organizational meeting, you set these dates. We provided them. I want to thank Rosie Acosta for developing this calendar. But we had long talked in the board and we'd heard community interest, and I heard you and your interest that we don't want to go to this late hour. And one tactic and one strategy would be to start at an earlier hour. So the only thing you're going to see, Rosie, correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing difference here is that starting in February, we start at 6 p.m. Thank you. So I always count on Rosie to, as my conscience and to tell me when I'm wrong. So, which is often. So, so Rosie, bless her, she created this and made it so it's 6 p.m. starting February. And what this means for the public and what it means for you is you will start earlier. We will no longer meet in closed session at 6 and start the public session at 7. We'll start at 6. And hopefully that'll mean that, like if we'd done it tonight, we'd be getting out at 9:30 or 9:45 instead of 10:45. So we think that's better for the public. We think it's better for you. We think it's better for us. The board and I will then have to go back. We will have to go back and figure out what days are good or what times are good for closed session. Maybe we'll do it at 5 o'clock before the meeting. Maybe we'll do it on other days, but we can work that out later. It's only the regularly scheduled meetings we have to do. You've already approved those dates. Now we're just saying we want to approve those same dates, but give you a 6 p.m. That's it.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Oh, sorry.
A second? One can be first and another a second. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that piece or second? Second. Okay. And I'm going to open it up for discussion.
Just for a quick clarification, have we decided yet what we're going to do for closed, or we haven't decided? It sounded like from, okay. So we're not still for sure doing the Wednesday night. We might do 5. Okay. And should we talk about that now, or should we, since we're going to have our next meeting at 6 on that February date, did we figure out now what our closed session is?
I would, if it were me, my recommendation is to give Rosie and me a chance to poll you for dates for the next, and to sort of see if we can do that, just in the interest of not having to take the time here to do it. But that's my, I mean, because you have no requirement to list your times.
Right. I was just, it sounded a little bit like that might create more work for you guys if we were all like, oh yeah, let's just do 5, or we're going to keep doing what we've done before, which was doing the closed session the night before. But I agree, if it's going to be a long conversation and we don't have the answers to that yet, then that's fine if you're willing to have that individual conversation with each of us.
Well, it might be worth having the conversation just to ask if people have a preference, if an hour before or another day.
I have a slight preference for the hour before. Having 2 nights that week, I always find a little bit difficult. I think the night before makes sense when we know we're going to have to talk for longer than an hour. And so I would prefer to keep that a little flexible. That's my preference.
If we can do it an hour before if we need to go longer. If we've started earlier, it's not so crazy if we have to come back to closed session. The fact that we're starting earlier, so.
So I think I'm hearing two board members say that we could start closed session at 5 o'clock. We could always change this. And
Again, if it works with everybody else's work schedule, if it doesn't, I'm still open to doing it at another time before that day.
I am too. I'm fine if we need to do it on another night. I just, for me, it's having the 2 nights, having to kind of bifurcate it sometimes is a little bit more, but I am totally fine if the 5 doesn't work for me.
I'm flexible, and I'm also fine with Sean and Rosie following up, because I think there might, people might have personal preferences they don't necessarily want to speak to in public, so.
And I trust our new president to work it out.
Yeah, I'm on it. I need to think about that because it's also childcare and work, and so I need to. I see what I agree with you, Kim. Like we're starting earlier, so if we have to go back, there's time. But I also know we all have great input, and sometimes short conversations are not so short. So I also appreciate not feeling like we have to rush or anybody has to be cut off because we're in a rush to start the board meeting. Okay, so and with that being said, that was an action item, and we do roll call. Rosie.
Lisa,
Aye.
Maribeth,
Aye.
Freya,
Aye.
Sophia,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Caroline.
Aye.
Item passes 5+1. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And now the approval for the governing board presentation for the year 2021. Do I have Dr. McFetrich, would you?
Quickly, at the organizational meeting, we presented you with a list of committees. Wow, how many committees we have grown into now, right? I can't remember them all, but there's the Financial Advisory Committee, the Environmental Sustainability Committee, which we had a good meeting this week on, and I know that we're reaching out to the Half Moon Bay High School Environmental Sustainability Group. There is the City 2+2. There is the Visual and Performing Arts Committee. I'm going to forget something. There's the Latino Advisory Council, which we added to this one. There's the LGBTQ. There's the CSBA Legislative Actions. There's the DLAC. There is the Parent Teacher Organization Alliance monthly meetings. The Real Estate Surplus Property Committee that we discussed. There's the CTE Education Advisory Committee, which by law has to have somebody. And there's the County Committee on School District Organization, though even though you have reorganized to trustee area, Freya, bless you, still works on that committee with Sophia as a backup. San Mateo County School Board Association, and I already mentioned the Visual and Performing Arts Committee. And I don't know if we went to a second page or not, Rosie, but wow, we've grown into many committees and the board is very responsible and is serving and representing and doing so much work. We brought this back because we had missed a couple committees that were new to us. A Latino Advisory Committee, an LGBTQ Roundtable, the San Mateo County School Board Association, I think we've missed. So we recommend approval because this is what you directed us to bring back to you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second. And I only have just one question / correction. I think we've been toggling between using the term Financial Advisory Committee and Budget Advisory Committee. I don't have a strong preference for which it is, but we should probably be consistent in that. I think, Jesus, correct me if I'm wrong, are we leaning more towards Budget Advisory Committee? Just probably more the scope of what it is rather than the broader topic of finance?
That's what we have been using, so okay. I would advocate for budget advisory.
My apologies, that's my mistake. And because I think we did call it a Financial Advisory Committee, but by board policy, it is Budget Advisory Committee. So that is my error. And so I will just make a friendly recommendation that you could make a friendly amendment to the motion saying, I move we approve it with financial change to budget.
So I'll make that friendly amendment that Sean just said.
Can I make another friendly amendment? The Latino Advisory Committee, correct me if I'm wrong, Leticia. I thought we were doing more of a roundtable just to give everybody the notion of like equality all around for that purpose. So
That is correct. We determined to call it a roundtable to also match, I believe there was another roundtable.
LGBTQ.
LGBTQ roundtable, yes.
And also to kind of make it more informal, of like more information sharing, and the district is kind of coordinating it. Thank you very much, Leticia and Rosalva, for that. But it's more like a collective rather than like a committee with a specific purpose. So
Well,
good catch.
Well, that's music to my ears because, you know, I love this roundtable concept personally. And I would say that if you want to get through this, now someone else would say, oh, I want to move with a friendly amendment that we change Latino Advisory Committee to the Latino Roundtable and the Financial Advisory Committee to a Budget Advisory Committee. But you have to make the motion as a friendly amended motion and then second it.
I'll make a motion. Oh, I can't do it. Sorry, I'll be quiet.
No, you're not allowed. No, it's okay. I don't care. I'll make the motion though, just to clarify. Yeah, I'll make the motion to change it from Financial to Budget Advisory Committee and from Latino Council to Latino Roundtable.
Second.
Advisory though, or no advisory, just Latino Roundtable, is that? Okay.
I think so, yes.
So we'll take out the advisory, okay. That makes sense.
And we need a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, right? Lindsay?
Do we need to roll call, Sean?
I would, just because I think our new kind of rhythm that we've established with President Cortez is
Yeah, you're messing me up. Don't do this, Rosie. Just let's go with let's do the roll call.
So we're doing the roll call for the change. Lisette?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
Passes 5+1. So now we have to do a roll call for the approval of the item, right?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Lisette?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
And Caroline?
Aye.
Passes 5+1.
Okay. Then moving on to future events. January 18th is Martin Luther King Day, so there will be no school. January 20th is the PTO Alliance meeting, and it's via Zoom. It will take place at 9 o'clock in the morning. January 25th is the Latino Advisory Committee, which is actually the Latino Roundtable. And that will also be via Zoom at 3:30 p.m. January 27th would be the Budget Advisory Committee, also via Zoom at 6:30 in the afternoon. And February 9th will be the DLAC meeting via Zoom at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. February 11th is the regular board meeting, and once again via Zoom at, it says here 6, but I believe it will be 5 now. Just kidding, it will be 6. Okay, and this means that, right, we're gonna adjourn the meeting. Return to closed session is not necessary, and we are gonna adjourn the meeting to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
All right.
Lisette?
Aye.
Mary Beth?
Aye.
Freya?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Caroline?
Aye.
5+1. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.